Okay, good evening and welcome to the Timberlane Regional School Board meeting for Thursday, September 19th, 2019. I'd like to take a moment of silence for our troops that put themselves in harm's way. Okay, if we can stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Okay, Ms. Belcher, if you could take the roll call vote, please.
Brian Boyle.
Here.
Lee Doobie. Kim Farah.
Here.
Sheila Lowe's.
Here.
Sarah Mockamer. Sean O'Neill.
Here.
Kristen Savage. Sue Sherman. Jennifer Silva.
Here.
Seated at the board table this evening are Superintendent of Schools, Dr. Earl Metzler, and Student Representative Kyle Duffy. The presence of other district administrators as well as Timberlane Teacher Association officers will be reflected in the meeting minutes.
Okay, thank you. Let's go on to the regular board meeting minutes for September 5th, 2019.
Didn't we have something in here about March? The surplus? Oh, fine.
The surplus is in
No,
there.
but it isn't, where's the date?
Kathy, all the timestamps on here are all zeros. I mean, will they be updated?
They will be added, yes. When I did the minutes, the
Oh, that's
Vimeo
fine.
was not up. The live stream was up, but not the Vimeo, and I need to go by the Vimeo timestamps.
Okay.
Do you know what I'm saying?
I understand what you're saying.
Chair,
I'm
Okay.
sorry.
in the minutes, didn't we talk about year-end budget review? Did we not discuss having, something by March of next year as far as surplus numbers?
With
Make a
January.
motion first.
I thought it was March that we were aiming for.
No, I need to get them on the floor.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to accept the minutes of September 5th.
I'll second.
He's not ready.
All right.
Sorry, Sheila. I just wanted to get it on the floor.
Okay,
For discussion,
yeah, okay, motion made and seconded, so then now go ahead, Sheila.
sorry. Why did I think that we had, you're saying January, and I thought it was March that we were asking for preliminary surplus numbers so that we would have enough time that if we wanted to take care of some facilities, unlike this year, and we wanted to do more facilities work, it couldn't come in June because 30 days doesn't give us enough time.
Correct.
So
there was part of
wasn't
it-
there, but didn't we talk about
You did.
We tossed some
March
dates
date,
around.
but it's not in the minutes, and I'd like it in the minutes somewhere?
Sure, because you know what, it was part of the follow-up when I did the follow-up notes from it, so I do recall.
So if you could, add it somewhere, I don't,
Want to call it first meeting in March, for the first?
Yeah, first
Yes.
meeting in March.
I think
would
I
be-
added it to this as well.
yes,
Under
but I
year-end
just want it
budget review?
recognized in the, because,
Sure.
Well, we talked January too, because that was halfway, so we kind of have an idea, spend rate, but March probably makes more sense.
I think March makes more sense, because then you only have April, May, and June left.
We should probably check it, we should probably get a preliminary kind of like estimate, and then maybe have the number that we in March.
But I just want something noted
Yep,
that we
I
did talk
hear what
about a
you're saying.
date.
Yep, yep, I will do that.
Do we put that on the back of that one?
Yeah, it's on the
Yeah,
back
she did.
here.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay. good,
It's
good,
just
good.
not in the minutes.
right.
Thank you.
I have note.
Okay, Jen?
The very last section under policies, I don't remember saying that New Hampshire School Board Association does not recommend repealing policies already adopted.
Yeah, you had said that. I do remember that you said that. We were talking about repealing some of the ones that, it was the B policies that were on the agenda that you were looking at.
So,
And-
what I was talking about, they don't recommend repealing any of the optional ones, was in that, that list that they sent back to us.
Right, and the optional ones that were associated with the B ones. I think that's what I took it as.
Yeah, well, just in general, they, like, they're, when they did our policy review, they weren't looking to tell us to repeal policies.
Right. Did I say that?
Well, it just looks like, I don't know how I want to word this. It's not that they're making a recommendation not to do it, they're just not, we didn't ask, that wasn't really the scope of their work to tell us whether or not they thought we should repeal things. Because, I don't know if I'm being clear on,
So what they do not recommend repealing policies.
well, it's just that, that's not a recommend, that's not part of their recommendations to tell us what to
And that was
repeal or
in
not.
response to Dr. Farah. She said something about repealing them, and you had said they don't make a recommendation to repeal policies that are adopted. So
So it's
I'm,
just not there, it's just that,
I'm happy to
that's not the
change
scope,
it.
it's, I'm struggling with the wording of this.
Yeah, I'm happy to change it.
Would
So
you like to phone a friend?
Well, they're not providing an opinion one way or the other.
Correct,
Yeah.
correct. It's not that they're recommending not to do it, it's,
does not provide an opinion on, does,
Existing policies.
no?
Existing optional
Not-
policies.
Existing
or
optional
they're,
policies.
let's put it this way, if you have 500 policies, they're not gonna tell you to repeal anything, they're gonna assume that you have them because you want them. So,
Because they're optional.
Do you want me to strike that sentence?
yes.
Is that easier?
Strike it.
Period? I think that,
Is everybody okay with that?
I'm okay with that.
I just, when I read that in the minutes, it looks as though they're making a recommendation saying, don't touch them.
Sure.
And we're going against that, and that really wasn't,
right,
They're-
right. I
they're-
didn't take it to mean that
Okay.
either.
Okay.
Okay, motions is currently still on the floor for approving of the minutes. We have
No.
one edit and then two edits, actually. There's no more verbiage added in regards to the time frame from Sheila's comment, and Jen's sentence is
Yeah.
going to be stricken. Anything else to add to the minutes? If not, I'm going to call the question. All those in favor? Unanimous. Pass. And then we'll do on to the non-public ones that are in front of us.
So your non-public sealed are session 1, which are around, that maybe
This is
Dr.
this.
Barrett is still handing them around that way. And then session 2 are not sealed.
Let's do session 1.
Thank you, sir.
I'm gonna leave that sealed, I'm sure.
Motion to approve the non-public minutes of September 5th, 2019.
Second.
Those are the sealed ones you're talking about?
Yes, the session 1.
Sealed.
Thank you, yeah.
Session 1.
And Dr. Farah.
Okay. Motion made by Brian, seconded by Dr. Farah. Anything further? Call the question. All those in favor? Passes unanimous. Collect them. And we'll move on to session 2.
make a motion to accept non-public session 2, September 5th.
Second.
Motion made by Jen, seconded by Kim. Further discussion? If not, call the question. All those in favor? Motion passes unanimously. And those are unsealed, so we don't have to touch them. Okay, minutes are done. Mr. Duffy.
Yes. All right. Good evening. So lots of things have happened throughout the district in the past few weeks after the start of school. So we're gonna hop right into it with Atkinson Academy. They held their first Monday morning meeting, and they reminded the students what CARES stands for, and that stands for Challenge, Awareness, Responsibility, Empathy, and Self-Control. Atkinson Academy also hosted their ice cream social on Friday night from 6 to 7:30, and no, they haven't done it yet. They're going to do that this Friday, I believe. And it's sponsored by the Night Owls, and everybody is welcome to that. So join them at their ice cream social. Moving on to Danville Elementary. On September 11th, the school went outdoor to the flagpole for a moment of silence and the Pledge of Allegiance for a time of remembrance for those who lost their lives on that day. Kindergarten students at Danville have continued to learn their way around the building, and they walked to class by themselves, showing their new confidence and independence as kindergarten students. That's very exciting. And they ended their first full week with a back-to-school barbecue bash. The event was attended by all the students and the community, and they enjoyed a variety of treats, and they had their dunk tank dunking their favorite teachers, and they want to thank the PTA for putting in all that hard work to get that barbecue together. Going on down to Pollard School, the 3rd and 5th graders, they worked on different types of escape rooms. If you guys don't know what an escape room is, basically you just solve a bunch of puzzles, physical or not, to get out of the room, on quote unquote. And grade 3, they did a physical escape room comprised of math equations and puzzles to get out of the classroom. And grade 5 did digital escape room of the similar style. They worked on collaborative learning and working together as a team, so that was an awesome activity for them, those elementary schoolers. Their cross-country team at Pollard, they're having a great start. Love to hear the cross-country starting early. Cross-country runner myself. They have 40 students participating, and students and parents had a great time at their first meet, and they think that those meets and sporting events at a young age bring a lot of good qualities to the students that they can experience and gain. Their 2nd graders at Pollard were at hard work building their classroom communities, and they kind of gave a nod to Constitution Day, signing their second grade classroom's Constitution, and talked about how important it is to be a good citizen. Continuing with Pollard, they also did another enriching, memorable activity, and it was the Children's Choice Reading Program. So it's basically a program that gives publishers direct feedback on the books that they're publishing, where students could use QR codes to vote on whether they love, like, or leave the book. So I think that definitely gets the students involved in what type of reading they want to do. Going on to Sandown North, they had a fantastic first week at Sandown North. They did an awesome job during the fire drill, working on building safety and such. And the PTA has a lot of wonderful activities planned throughout the school year, so you guys should be looking forward to that at Sandown. Their first Monday morning meeting had students being involved with deciding their themes and shirts for the year, and there was also a parent meeting following that Monday morning meeting that was also a success, and they look forward to a strong PTA this year. Going on to Sandown Central, they've reported smooth sailing so far throughout the first few weeks, and teachers have been working a lot to develop their motto, Owl Ways Lead with Kindness, that's a mouthful, through class participation and respectfulness, awarding students who are giving out the values of Owl Ways Lead with Kindness. They also recognize September 11th and Constitution Day together by teaching the importance of the flag and how important it is to be part of a team and help each other. And as a final thing at Sandown Central, on September 18th, the fire and police departments from Sandown came to visit them and talk with them about quite a lot of things. And moving on to the middle school, the students have started a great year with the past few weeks, and each grade level had an assembly at the PAC to kind of talk about the middle school year, meet their school counselors and the SRO officer at the middle school and high school. And they just did their Camp Lincoln, which is a program that they go to in Kingston. It's kind of a yearly event, and all the sixth graders kind of get to bond over doing different activities, and the teachers get to bond with students as well. They did kayaking, archery, a challenge course, high ropes, and a nature hike for their first day, and on the second day, they enjoyed a cookout with the camp counselors and their teachers, so that was definitely an awesome program for them. Up to the high school, like we always do with the high school, we have a lot of dates, so be prepared for this one. September 16th, we had our college fair, which I talked about last meeting, but I'll touch on now. Basically, 80 colleges and universities, they come to, demonstrate themselves and what they have to offer for our students, so students, both juniors and seniors, can start looking at the opportunities that they have for college around the region. And next week is Spirit Week, very exciting. The days have been released, and Monday will be Mismatch Day, and the carnival will be held at 6 to 8 on the track. That's the event where loads of honor societies, clubs, they set up tables to sell food and do fun things, and there have been sign-ups for bubble ball and spike ball, so that's always a fun night. Moving on to Tuesday, we have Netflix / movie day, and that's the carnival rain date in case, God forbid, anything happened to the carnival. And Wednesday is tie-dye, and the variety show is at 6:30. At the Pack, that's going to be $6 admission, the variety show. Students across all the grades get to go do fun acts, whether it's music, talent. That's always interesting to see what the students of Timberland have to offer up. And Thursday, we have Sports Day. Friday is Color Day and Toga Day with the pep rally at the end of the day. Shirts are going to be on sale for September 24th. There's kind of a school shirt for 2019 Spirit Week going on. And we have our homecoming games against Salem, which is Friday, September 27th. 3:30, there's field hockey. At 4 p.m., there's JV soccer. And on Saturday, we have 9 a.m. for volleyball and 11 a.m. for girls soccer. Continuing on with the athletics there, the Friday night football will be their New Hampshire Tackles Hunger Initiative on September 27th. Fans are encouraged to bring a non-perishable food item for a donation. Anyone with a donation is going to get into the game free, and the donations are going to go to assist the school food pantry as well as local food banks. So try and help out with that. And congratulations to TRHS faculty member Mrs. Katie Murphy for being named the 2019 NHAH PERD Health Teacher of the Year. So that's super exciting. I'm glad to hear that we have great teachers working in this district, as we always do. And for the performing arts, marching band will be at the away game this Friday, tomorrow, so try and come out to support the football team and the marching band against Londonderry. And a reminder that on October 6th, the Packers are going to be hosting the Vintage Car Show with the doo-wop and vintage rock and roll concert performed by the Bel Airs. Bring your car and you get a free ticket into the Bel Airs show, so try and support that car show. It's going to be an awesome event. That's all I have for you guys tonight. Thank you, and have a great night.
Thank you very much. Great.
Wait for them to sign in.
Okay, we'll move on to our delegates and individuals. We have several people tonight. The first one is Michelle Murphy and Kristen Pelletier.
Can we switch that so that the boys speak first? Is that okay?
Okay, which one would you like to go first? I have Caden and Connor. Or do you guys both want to come up?
They were all gonna come up, is that okay?
Sure. Yeah, that's fine. Could you boys introduce yourselves to the board?
Hi, I'm Connor Pelletier. I'm here to talk about the hockey team.
Okay,
I'm Caden Pelletier, and I'm also here to talk about the hockey team.
okay,
I'm Jake Murphy, and I'm here for the hockey team as well.
okay,
I'm Cam Ingram, and I'm also here for the hockey team.
okay. Thank you.
We're here to talk about keeping varsity for hockey. We feel that lately the school has not supported us on keeping that and has switched it to a JV team. A lot of our players are not interested in playing that and have found other places to play. I'm wondering the skill level of this league. I've heard that it's the same, and if it's the same, why would we not just play varsity? We have the numbers. It's all at one home rink, which I know that that would not be as good for like team bonding. Bus rides are a very good time to be with your team. I feel that there's been a lack of communication about certain things, like meeting times and what we're doing with the team. I know that playing for Timberlane on a varsity team brought me a lot of pride, and to not have that would be pretty sad. For our seniors, it would be pretty unfair to them to not be able to play their last year on a varsity team. With how much we fought for a team off ice, I feel that we could really do well with the team on ice, just showing like the commitment and the hard work that most of the players have shown. All the kids are very dedicated to playing at a varsity level, and it's very hard to get back a program once you lose it. And I think that getting back a varsity team would be very tough if we switched it to JV. I feel that keeping it varsity for just one more year until we have the numbers would be a smart decision. I think the kids could handle it. I know I don't want to play JV. I found another place to play. And I'd be willing to come back if it was varsity to spend time with my teammates, which have become a family to me. And I don't want to lose that family. So let's try and keep varsity.
All right, I'm also talking about the hockey team. I think freshman year, well, I'm a freshman. I think it's a really important year for everyone who's been in high school, because like it kind of changes your like the way you look at everything. And I think it would be kind of sad that like the freshmen who are incoming, they wouldn't get to experience their first year of high school hockey. Like Connor said, I think it would be sad for the seniors who wouldn't get to finish off their last year of hockey. And I feel that, like, whenever we voice our feelings about this, that we're just kind of not listened to, or that whoever's in control of having the hockey team just doesn't want one. And I think that would be unfair to the people who do want one. We haven't really gotten any, like, all the information that we've gotten, it's kind of mixed up, things like that. I think that we've been trying to get the varsity program back for a while now. It's been kind of hard. It's been like, a while. I don't know the exact time. I think that's sad as kids who don't have like control over what ends up happening to the hockey team, that the people who do have control of it, at least from my point of view, it doesn't seem like much has really been changing. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
I'd like to add another thing. I think that as a school, it'd be pretty embarrassing to not have a varsity team. And I know that a lot of schools have one, and I think that Timberlane can have the ability to have one and should. And I had a jacket that I got for hockey last year, and I wore it every day to show like my appreciation and my pride for my school. And I enjoyed that. I'd like to have that back. And I'd like other players and kids to have that as well. Would you like to add anything?
As a senior, I just think that it'd be great to have a varsity team. Playing JV as a senior is kind of like just, I don't know, I've never met a senior that ever played JV. And I have a team in Methuen that I play for, and I think that I'd rather play for Methuen than the JV team just because I'm going straight from the fall team all the way through to winter. But if we have a varsity team, I think the kids will communicate better and we'll have really good time on the buses before the games. That's all.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
All right, our next one is Michelle. Do you want to go now?
Yes, thank you. So my name is Michelle Murphy. I am Jake Murphy's mom. And this is, sorry, the boys are rushing off to hockey practice.
I'm Christy. I'm Connor and Caden's mom. You guys met you before.
So we're members of the Boosters for Hockey and parents of multiple children in the school district. Well, this is my last one. And we are petitioning to get a meeting to have a discussion about the hockey team. We have been trying for weeks. You guys have been emailed on several attempts. We've actually been trying since early spring. We haven't been able to have an evening meeting where we can share our concerns. We can have an open discussion and a conversation. We have tried. We reached out to Dr. Metzler second or third time yesterday to try to schedule a meeting so that we could get everyone in the same room and have a conversation about what our options actually are and see if we can come to consensus on what's the best option for the team. So we're asking you if you can help us get a meeting.
Well, it's nice to know that the three people that are involved in that are sitting here in this room. So I would actually like to make a recommendation to Dr. Metzler that he would spearhead a meeting between Mr. Woodworth, Mr. Fantasia, yourself, and the boosters and students of the hockey team, and have that meeting, and then report back to the board, or myself, and I will forward it to the board of the outcome of that meeting.
All I can tell you is the directive has already been given. So my understanding was they had a communication issue tonight. They were trying to meet tonight. There was a meeting scheduled, but the information didn't get to the right people, correct? Because Ms. Murphy reached out, and I said I had directed, set up a meeting whatever works for principal and the athletic director, the parents and the students, and so that's supposed to happen already today, but it will happen. Did we pick another day already?
We talked about it.
We talked in the parking lot. We're hoping for next Wednesday. Yeah.
Okay, so
So-
this directive's already been issued.
Dr. Metzler, we would like to ask that you be at that meeting too. We really think that it's important that you're there, that everybody is there. If anybody from the board would like to come, we would love to have you guys.
Yeah, all I can tell you, depending on when it is, my schedule gets booked out months in advance, so depending on when the schedule is, I was gonna hold up a meeting. If I have availability, I'll try to be there.
That's
I was
perfect.
literally walking to the door 2 minutes before this meeting, so I wouldn't have been able to make it earlier today. But depending on my availability,
If you ladies let me know, I'll clear it off my schedule, and I'll make sure I attend.
Thank you. We're just really, the kids are just really trying to see what they can do to keep that varsity program, just to have the conversation. To talk about it and see why the JV program is, being really said is so much better. What are the reasons for this? There's not a lot of understanding as to how this happened when they thought they were going in one direction. They've recruited kids to come back, other kids to come and play. They really worked hard to make sure that they had what they needed for that varsity program. So they just want to talk. They want to find out what we can do.
It's not too late from what we've learned from NHIA. So we just want to have a discussion.
We'll find, Brian?
First of all, I want to thank you people for coming in, and thank your sons and the students for coming in. It's always good to hear from the directly affected people. And the board hears you. It's not, quite frankly, it's not a board decision, but
We understand.
I'm copied on information that the superintendent said. So I know the superintendent's on it. So, hopefully you people get to something that works for you.
We appreciate that.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. And our next is Mr. Richmond and Ms. Hampy.
Evening. First, forgive me for the sound of my voice. I have caught what is going around, the hazards of teaching. We're going to continue the theme of advocating for Timberlane. So good evening. I'm Ryan Richmond, president of the Timberlane Teachers Association.
Coral Hampy, Vice President of the Timberlane Teachers Association.
So last meeting, Vice President Hampy sat here and welcomed everyone back to the district and said that there were two issues that we would be monitoring most closely, and those are class size and special education caseloads. Later that meeting, a discussion took place, and a statement was made that class sizes at Timberlane are small. Later in that same discussion, a remark was made that more positions could be cut from Timberlane in the next budget. Let me be clear. Both statements are not wholly true. Following that meeting, I already had members asking me if they'll have a job next year. Sadly, a constant experience at Timberlane. Following that meeting, I had members asking why the school board was having a discussion that said that class sizes were small when they had classes of 25 to 30 throughout their day. Following that meeting, I had members in special education informing me that their caseloads are high, some as high as 30 in their caseload. The reason why is we are understaffed in several areas. After years of cutting positions and corners, and because of many unfilled positions, the professionals at Timberlane are being stressed beyond what is reasonable to ask of them. Class sizes, many of them at Pollard, Danville, the middle school, and the high school, are up. Later this evening, you'll receive a presentation about enrollments and class sizes, but data only tells part of the story. Our students are not a number. They are complex human beings with individual needs that we are required to service. Just because the law is vague on how many bodies you can cram into a classroom does not mean it is effective or even moral to do so. Our students struggle with home issues, mental and emotional health issues, physical disabilities, physical health challenges. They struggle with ADD and ADHD, are on the autism spectrum, are ESL, and are more isolated than ever. They're not a number, and the mission of any quality school district is to provide each of those students with what they need in order to be the best member of society that they can be. Continually cutting staff and positions makes this impossible. And the staff are not warm bodies. They are Timberlane. They are human beings who have sacrificed much more than most for this district and for this community. We are less than 1 month into the school year, and already I have members telling me that this is their most stressful year, due mainly to high class sizes, high IAP, and 504 populations. Many teachers have had to redesign their classrooms and sacrifice best practices in order to accommodate more students. Now, I've sat here for several years making the same argument to the school board and the budget committee to put Timberlane students first in the construction of their budget and default budget. And we recognize that with the governor's veto of the state budget and the failure of the compromise budget to pass, towns and districts are faced with a great unknown about tax rates, the loss of property tax relief, and public education funding that was included in both budgets. We recognize that with property tax being New Hampshire's only sole source of major revenue, communities are already strained. Some may think that the solution is to cut enrichment and elective offerings instead, offer a bare-bones education at Timberlane. This wouldn't just be immoral, it would be economically detrimental to the community. Such a decision would deprive Timberlane students of a comprehensive and competitive experience and deprive them of any advantage in their future endeavors. Additionally, it would make Timberlane non-competitive with other schools. Finally, it would hurt home values. every single academic study on the issue has shown that small class sizes and small student-to-teacher ratios lead to higher performing and more competitive schools. After weeks of researching, I struggled to find any that argue the opposite. Those that understand property values understand that school performance and competitiveness combined with student-to-teacher ratios are a major factor in determining home values. So as the Budget Committee and the school board begin the budgeting process, please do not seek arbitrary numbers. Please do not continue to cut positions and understaff Timberlane. Please do not cut programs that would only hurt students and the community. If there is a need to cut costs again, please do it in areas that don't hurt Timberlane. Lastly, let me thank my executive board, the deans, and the administrations of the schools who support us in this fight for the professionals, the students, and the community. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Yeah.
let me tell you something. I can only sit here and listen to so much of this nonsense. In all due respect, Ryan, this is my third year on the board. There has not been one program cut in 3 years. What you're referring to might be some open positions that were cut. Nothing was ever cut that we know of where a person was denied anything. So your concern, it might be more with the overall process, including the administration, because we didn't go into any classroom and say, you're not coming back. It hasn't happened. These are good stories, by the way, but it hasn't happened. And again, I hear all these things also often about these theories about they're going to cut this program. I don't know what people are talking about, because I know of no program in 3 years since I've been on the board that's been cut. So I understand what your point about the state education, this kind of stuff, but as for this board, I will stand behind everything we've done, and I just strongly disagree with I guess the message you were just trying to lay on the viewing public, that we are making these major cuts. It just hasn't happened.
I'm not saying that you are.
Well,
I'm saying that
that's what I heard.
I'm saying that the conversations that took place at the last meeting said those two things. And my members immediately came to me and indicated that those are not true.
If you saw it in that exact meeting, I believe it was 6 to 8 positions, and the superintendent said, we're going to need at least half of those. And that was fine. There was then we'll cut the other half. I think you're reading into a conclusion that didn't even happen.
My job is to represent my members and their
I know
fears.
Yeah. Okay.
And it's conversations like that held in public that immediately affect the people of Timberlane. And I think, and I'm not going to project, but I think sometimes you don't realize that the conversations you have real impact on people who are serving this district.
I would say
I'm
that
sorry.
with that, every decision that's made up here, at least from my viewpoint, I know it drastically affects a lot of people.
And the kids.
And the kids.
I mean, this is what we're here for, Ryan.
I mean, our policy is we are less than the state requirements for enrollment, at all the respected grades. There's only a handful, at least I've known since I've been on the board, that we have increased that to go beyond the policy. So we are...
And I, with absolute respect, they're not all the same children. When you have a class of 25, 26, 27, 28, as I do, and as a lot of my colleagues do in my department, and then you throw in a great variety of IEPs requiring modifications and accommodations, that's not the same as 25, 26 students that are very similar. And that's why the point is that numbers don't reflect all of the story.
Okay. Sheila?
Two things. I don't know if you saw on the agenda tonight, but class size was on the agenda.
Yes,
I asked for that.
I said
I
that.
asked for that.
And I appreciate that.
I'm the one that put in that request, and do you know why? Because I've been seeing it online, and I heard Carl I actually heard you talk, I listened, about class sizes at the last meeting. So you made me trigger, and I went, you know what? I want to know about the class sizes, because this seems to keep coming up. So I want to make sure that we are within our policy, okay? As far as special education, that's my second thing. We go by what is given us by the administration. If they say, oh, we need, am I right? We need 3 more special education teachers and, caseworkers, whatever. They come to us with that. They come to us with the open positions. We don't make those decisions, Ryan. They come to us and we approve them or don't approve them or talk about them. But to sit here and say that the caseload in special education is high, and we had a surplus on that line last year, I have a problem with that. I am telling you, I have a problem with that. If you're telling me that we've got special education teachers that are overloaded, but yet we had a surplus, we ran a surplus, then there is a problem.
You will not hear me disagree with you.
Okay, but please understand something.
But we are understaffed.
But don't sit here and look at this board and say, look at what you did, because that's what it sounded like to me too.
Well, I'm sorry.
And we can only take the recommendation from the administration, what they're recommending to us.
Because you could have the money in the budget, and if it doesn't get recommended to us to pursue added staff, it ain't gonna happen no matter what, even if it is in the budget.
Well, I'm here telling you that it is.
Well,
That's
Well,
my
then
job.
we're gonna have
That
to
is
have
my
a
job.
conversation.
You should go through administration, because
My job is to represent.
That's fine, that's fine,
the
but
needs and
I'm not-
concerns of my members.
and that's what you're supposed to do.
Exactly.
I'm not convinced the administration's not doing their job. So that's
I'm not
kinda-
saying that they aren't either.
Well, you're saying someone's not doing the job.
Do we-
I'm
And-
simply
and I'm not
presenting
seeing it.
information.
I'm not
that
seeing it
you
from either
may
side,
or
the
may not
administration
be
or the board.
considering.
Jen and then Kim had it.
Because ultimately, the buck does stop in this room, and we've had that conversation before.
The dollar buck stops in the room, correct.
I think it's unfortunate that your members are taking or hearing what's being said in this room a certain way, but those conversations do need to happen in public for the sake of transparency. They are public discussions. It's not. It's unfortunate that it provokes such anxiety and fear and concern. Because, like Brian said, I don't know that there's been this mass cut. When you talk about class sizes, I would agree with you. Some of those classes, my daughter's in a math class of almost 28. My son's never had a math class of more than 19. I don't really know why. Some sections seem to be very high. Some sections seem to be much lower. That's not something that this board has control over, and I understand that, guidance and the administration works really hard to get every student the class that they want, when it fits into their schedule. So the flip side of that, sure, you could balance out those classes, but then you're looking at telling kids, you might not be able to take this or this because it's not fitting in your schedule, because we're going to cap the classes at, say, 20. So I don't know what the solution to that is. Do you tell the kids, no, you can't take the classes? Or do you make space in the classes and say, okay, we are going to go up to the maximum?
Well, that's not something that I am in a position to answer.
But that's not something that this board really is in a position to do anything.
What I am trying to convey to you is that there are positions that aren't filled, which you discussed at the last meeting, that has an impact. So simply to say that because they're not filled, we may not need to put it in the budget at all, isn't taking into account the effect that it is already having.
That was not said. That was absolutely not said. Because a position was not filled is no reason to cut a position. A reason to cut a position is it's a not filled position and it's not needed moving forward. And I was explicit speaking to Mrs. Allaire about this, that we would only be looking at eliminating positions that we knew that the administration would support removing because they have not been filled because there was no reason for them to be filled. Another thing I really resent is the fact that you're saying that we're arbitrarily setting budget numbers and pulling those out of thin air. That is not the case. We just came in on a default budget at $4 million under that default budget number. I'm not sure why that happened, but I know I was the one that took the heat when that default budget number was too low. And it was the administration that pink slipped the teachers without the board being aware. And as far as I know, no one had to file for unemployment because the budget didn't show it. So I resent the fact that your implication, whether you meant it or not, is that we're just tossing numbers out and all we care is numbers. I'm in education. I'm doing my best to make sure that this district is maintaining the academic level that they are, at the same time trying to balance that against the fact that we have serious facility needs here, and we have issues in the financial realm. And we have also got to be respectful of our taxpayers, understanding that the state isn't really providing what they need. So every member of this board is committed to Timberlane, and I think that what you're hearing back from this board is disappointment. We went to the mat for the teachers. We tried to give the biggest raise possible. We tried to give those teachers what they needed in terms of supports on the other parts of that collective bargaining agreement.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm a little disheartened. I'm an educator myself, and to hear this come back, and right now we're in the middle of TSSU negotiations, and we're going to try the best for them that we can within our means.
Thank you.
It's probably not going to be enough, but we know that when we go to the taxpayers that we have got to show some fiscal responsibility, or you're not going to get anything.
This is something that we're very aware of and which I acknowledged in my statement. We know that you are in difficult positions given the state's inability to meet the Claremont decision. But we felt that it was necessary that you hear the concerns already. It's September, and these concerns are already coming to us. This is not November, this is not January that these concerns are coming to us from our members.
Then I guess we need to do a better job of explaining, because what you're bringing back to us based on what that discussion was last time is just, I'm just blown away.
Yeah, me too.
That was what was interpreted.
Well-
So there's something going on here, because that's, what you're articulating back that your teachers are feeling is not where this board is going.
Mr. Chair, I think we've already kind
think
of
we're-
beat the
I think we
heck
should
out
move
of
on.
this delicate individual, but thank you very much, and,
Can I just,
you know.
I'm sorry, Brian, can I just ask one question? Because
I just want to know if there's a meeting.
I'm
scheduled.
listening to this and I'm feeling like there is some lack of communication somewhere, because we're, as a board, we are approving the recommendations that come to us from the administration. And it sounds like, and maybe I'm wrong, so I'm just going to say it, but it sounds like the administration is not aware of your concerns until you bring them to the board. So do you folks communicate with the administration?
We're hoping to schedule a meeting. We're trying for next week, I think.
So I feel like
But I
that's
have
how
had
the flow of
conversations with.
communication needs to go.
So you haven't had a conversation with the administration since the last meeting?
I've had conversations with Mr. Pedersen, because we are in the same building, and it is easier for us to communicate that way. This is not an issue that has resulted, as you have said, in an effect other than people perceiving that there could be something coming. And to Ms. Silva's point, a lot of our members actually just watch the live stream or the Vimeo. So, again, going back to my earlier point, I absolutely agree. I'm a big fan of democracy, and certain conversations need to be had in public. But also think about the impact that what you're saying might have, and clarification on some things would probably be very helpful, just to Dr. Farah's points. But these are the concerns that people already have based on the last meeting. And those are the two very issues that we already said that we were going to be watching for. And lo and behold, they already end up bringing us to the table. It is nothing out of disrespect for the CBA that we both negotiated. But there is, as everybody knows, far more than just a CBA that entails happiness and fulfillment in work. And we don't do it for the money. None of us get into this business for the money. We get into it because we care about people other than ourselves, as any elected official who gets onto a school board does. Because Lord knows there's no thanking you. But
I don't know. I
it's
think
important to hear the issues.
it is important to hear the issues, but I also think it's important not to feel for a board who's trying to do its best here as volunteers, to feel like they're getting, for lack of a better word, ambushed, okay, in a sense. That's the wrong word, I'm sorry. You know, I appreciate if there's something that doesn't make sense to the TTA that we're saying, or you're feeling that, and it was Sheila that told me there's all this thing about class size, and I'm like, what? We're not talking about class. You know, maybe the thing to do, because we cannot speak to you directly, would be to share those concerns with the superintendent. I would certainly hope that he could explain in greater detail what the substance of the conversation was. If you don't feel that's the case, then I would request that he send them over to the board, and we will try to explain it better. Because you're right, people just watch TV. They may not even watch, they may have taken one soundbite. I want class sizes to increase. That's it, and that's all they're going to hear, because they're not going to listen to the next 10 minutes where he's saying, I'm just giving that as an example, because I've already shut it up. So I just, you know, I appreciate you coming. I appreciate the TTA. I just think that there's maybe a better way to try to communicate it, and also to communicate it back to your members. I'm not sure now what you're going to take back. Do you know, meet regularly? Is there something that,
Well,
you know,
for example, I have a colleague in my department. All of her classes are more than 20, most more than 25. I'm not going to be able to say anything to her because our department, for example, and I can only speak for our department, is short a person, is short a professional, which means that a lot of our classes are much higher.
is it short because it's an open position?
I don't know.
Well, you should.
That's not an answer that I can give because I don't know.
Well,
If it's short,
should know
I mean,
that.
there's.
You know what, guys, I
Okay, yeah,
think
we don't wanna
we're
go down
getting
that.
way into
Nope.
this
Yeah,
thing.
sorry. Thanks,
Way
Brian.
into this thing.
Let's stop.
Thank you, Mr. Boyle.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we'll get on to our first agenda item, which is the athletic department budget update. Deja?
Thank you. I believe you have a,
Yes, we do. Very nice.
thank you.
I like it.
Yeah.
It's easier to look at here than on the computer, that's for sure.
So when I was, you correct me if I'm wrong, when I was here last, one of the requests was to see kind of a breakdown a little bit by sport or by program.
Yes.
So I tried to do a snapshot for you, looking at last year's kind of things that I had kind of full, if that makes sense. So I tried to give you that type of information. I hope that was what you were looking for. Is that,
It was a beautiful thing. I have 3 questions and I'll be done.
okay, well,
3 questions,
I have
that's
one
it.
comment.
I got 3 questions.
Oh, come on.
Well, Sheila can go.
Okay. First thing I noticed, and I kind of chuckled at this,
okay.
was volleyball boys, volleyball girls.
Yeah,
Supplies.
yeah.
I've been here, Angela. What is the difference in those supplies?
They're
Because
really kind, and again, this is where I should have prefaced
nets,
this.
balls.
Yes. Yes.
I've been there.
Shared. Some of them are shared, right?
I'm sorry?
Shared. Some of them are shared supplies.
Yes, I was gonna say, A, it's shared, you know, obviously I got the same coach for boys and girls, so he's
Right.
asking me for stuff.
That's what
he's
I'm saying.
asking
It's
me
the
for
same-
stuff. So it pretty much is the same. It does, though, because they're in 2 separate seasons sometimes, what will wind up happening, and it's happening again, by the way, the netting system in certain times, you know, it happens in the girls' season, or it happens in the boys' season. And so you'll see kind of like an increase.
But everybody talks about disparity with girls and boys, and in this thing, the girls are up here and the boy, I'm like,
And
I
you know
don't
what, though,
understand.
and I'll tell you what,
Makes
though,
sense to me.
I will say this for you, just interesting to note, so we have 3 levels of girls and 2 levels of boys.
Right.
So, just a natural increase in some of the things, but nothing major, it's all right there, and like I said, they're the same.
Okay. The other question was the pitching machine. Is that just softballs too, or just baseballs?
Yes, no, softball.
Softballs also?
Yeah.
Okay.
We have to, in fact, we need a new pitching machine for the softball team this season. We got one for the middle school,
Okay.
and then I found out that we need another one for the high school. So I will take care of that for them.
So actually, it's 4 questions. The bleachers are for soccer, I hope?
What I'm looking to do, and I have a meeting with Dr. Metzler and Mr. Dowd about this year's budget, so I kind of want to pick brains before I start doing too much. But ideally, what I'd like to do on the soccer/girls lacrosse field, and again, I'm going to bore you for 1 second. I've gone over to NHTI where we have a lot of AD meetings. And NHTI has a simple yet very, very nice soccer field. It's got the I don't know if you've been.
Oh, yes, I have.
I love it.
Yep.
It's got the level 3 bleachers, so you don't have to go into ADA pieces, and they have them right up the sideline. They have a netting system. If you come to our soccer field, you'll see the telephone poles, and the net's kind of worn, so we got to do something soon. They have an unbelievable netting system that anchors into the ground with the aluminum poles. You can take the nets off easy in the wintertime. And I really, to be honest with you, I brought our maintenance crew, our grounds crew, over to NHTI. We took a field trip. And I said, listen, at some point, I would like to try to emulate on this field what it looks like. It's simple, but effective.
But the bleachers would be
The
for that
bleachers would be
field.
for that field.
Thank you.
Yes, I'm sorry.
No, that's what I was getting
Sorry,
at,
I went
because
too far
we've heard
for
a
you.
lot about those
In the
bleachers.
hills?
On top of the hill. So do you see where the storage shed is in the middle? So I would envision bleachers on both sides of those for people to sit. And there'll still be plenty of room if people want to bring their own chairs, but it would be kind of neat to have those on both sides.
My last thing was the uniforms.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, because I was involved in this.
Okay.
You don't have swim on here, and that's yearly.
Swim is yearly. I'm sorry I left it off. Swim, here's what we do with swim.
And gymnastics would be yearly too, correct?
Correct. So what we're
Okay.
going to do, I just had a meeting with the gymnastics kids, and what I'm telling people is, with swimming every year, we order swimsuits.
Right.
I pay half, they pay half.
Right.
They keep the suit. I'm not collecting the swimsuit.
No.
And the same thing will be with the lead.
Yeah, it is a really good policy.
And the same thing would be with gymnastics. I
Okay.
said to the girls when I met with them the other day, and they kind of looked at me, and I said, the only thing I won't do is, you don't want me picking anything.
It's not a ton of money, though, as far as
No,
swim, right?
no, and it's yearly.
Right,
It's every year.
depending on how many kids and.
Correct.
Right, so it's not big
So
money.
It's not something that I have to cycle, we just
Right.
do that.
Okay. All right, that was it for me.
Thank you.
There's a lot of detail in here. Jen?
Yeah, that total was a lot less than I thought it was gonna be.
What's that?
That total was a lot less than I thought it was gonna be. $360,000.
Well, that doesn't include other lines and stuff. I just thought I would zero in for you
Yep.
on this stuff. I thought that would make it easier to read. I will tell you, as I was researching all
And
this,
obviously transportation and some of those other.
those are
like-
kind of
like-
the glues of everything, so I
Right.
kind of really felt like, let you zero in on, it's a lot. I'm not a numbers guy a lot, so I tried to make it as,
It's 360 plus about 90 in uniforms.
90,
Oh,
and then,
every
but there's
5
other,
years.
there's maintenance and repair stuff, there's
Yeah,
ground,
whatever.
there's stuff that's,
It's still not a
right,
lot of
it's,
money.
yeah,
Not a lot of money.
no.
Okay, those are just examples, so I'll leave it alone. Okay.
Thanks.
Looks good.
Thank you.
I don't have anything.
I'm good.
Jim, you have anything?
No.
All right.
Is it?
Well, that, huh?
Thanks, Nancy.
Nice.
Easy breezy.
Thank you, folks.
I like
Thank
the
you.
color coding.
Yeah, it's easy to read,
I
actually.
like it.
No.
I can take no credit for that part, by the
I
way.
like it.
Easy to read.
Okay, next one is transportation update.
No.
Cindy?
Hey, Mrs. Hodgkins. How are you? Good evening.
I
just kind of want to give you an update with the, opening of school with all the things with the buses. I don't have any data for you or anything tonight. It's pretty much just to give you an overview, and the second part would be more for informational for the parents, to be aware of some things going on. So our school opening, the buses arriving at the high school, middle school in the morning, was obvious one of our concerns. And I think it went pretty smoothly. Usual startup issues. We did have several buses coming in later than we had expected, but I think that's just the new traffic pattern. You know, you never know what to expect on the first week of school, who's driving, that kind of thing. Principal Woodworth did keep me apprised and told me that they had several buses for high school students arriving late. So that was the first week. By the second week, it had improved tremendously. And then by the end of that second week, we only had like one bus that wasn't arriving on time. So, and the solution for all of that was, we did have to have some of the drivers start a few minutes earlier on their route to get them here on time. That was one of the issues. Sometimes when you change something by 1 or 2 minutes, where it puts them in the traffic pattern to get here makes a big difference.
The same thing with everybody's commute on the way to work. You know, when they go in, you don't hit that right spot, you're behind a bus for, how long you need to be.
Exactly.
Bad example.
But you hit the red light or whatever. Plus, we also were dealing with some construction, Route 111.
Right.
But I think at this point right now, we're doing very well. My main concern was buses that were carrying CTE students to make sure that they got here in time. Fortunately, parents did call me to tell me, which was great, because I had not had a list yet of who the students, what buses. The drivers do figure that out pretty quickly, the first couple days. So that was my concern, and we dealt with it. I think we're at a good point for that. Our PM buses are in the lineup, seems to be working very well. The high school buses are able to board and leave, and as soon as they leave, there is, in the beginning, there was some confusion on like the high schoolers leaving in their cars that are parked behind the school. And some of the buses, the middle school bus was pulling out, and I told them they need to at least wait to get our mini buses that go from the high school to the middle school. So as soon as the high school pull out, you'll see the mini buses, and then you will see cars, student cars, and they're all allowed to get through with that line of high school buses. As soon as it stops, the last middle school bus pulls out of line, more or less, to block the area, and then the reds go on for the middle schoolers to dismiss. So it's been pretty, I've been back there a couple times, so if you want to see something really work well, I think it does. I have not had any, from the elementary schools, they have not told me of any issues yet. So if something's going on, they'll let me know, and we'll take care of that. But I think we're at a good place for high school, middle school right now. So like I said, I don't have any data for you as far as counts and times. The drivers are doing that this week and next week, so they have until next Friday to get that to me. And I will gather that and get that to you, hopefully by mid-October, so that it can, so you can at least see what's going on, who's riding it. And that information, when it comes into me, helps me to determine where I need to make changes or improvements on any of the bus runs. So the second part of this is more for parents, information for them to know kind of where I'm at in my office and maybe why they can't reach me. So I've only had a few complaints in the beginning. Actually, it was only like 2 from Sandown parents, actually, that were kind of astonished that it wasn't the time they were expecting their kid to get home because of the change up of the routes. Unfortunately now, somebody who might have been home earlier is now probably at the end of that route. So I hear them, and I will look at those issues in all of the towns, actually. But it seemed to be just Sandown that I got so far. I also got complaints that some of those buses were full. I know they're not over capacity. If they were, the drivers would be telling me right away. So I want to let parents know our buses may seem very full, and yes, I'm sure there are some 3 to a seat, but again, I don't have that data, so I can't really comment on that. This has been like a really amazing startup, because I have had so many emails. It's just been crazy. And I'm trying to weed through them by priority to get back to those parents that need to have an answer for something that's important. A lot of them are just looking for their bus stop information, or it's the First View has put a lot of that onto my plate, trying to get parents acquainted with that system as well. So I am pretty much caught up on my daily emails, although I still have some that I am returning, looking through as I catch up and go back to the older ones to get. So everyone will get an answer. I'm just not there yet. I would encourage parents, if they still have a major issue or something that needs to be addressed, that they send it to me now or call me, because phone calls have calmed down, that I can keep up with that as well. So that would be my important information for parents to know. I'm more available now because I'm current. I do, and if they have, I think it's important for parents to know if they have changes in their students' locations and schedules, that's not for me to control, that's for the school office. So it's important that they contact them, because that has also kind of bogged me down to try to help them when it should be the school office helping them. And then if they don't get an answer, by all means, they can call me. The other piece to all of this, as we know, is the First View app. So I have gotten a lot of calls and emails. There are quite a few pieces to keeping this going. The first part is the student information in the Power School system. So we have to make sure that addresses are correct. And I get a weekly report from my Edulog program, because that's where those addresses go in. They go into the Edulog program, which is where we assign the students to a stop. So if that information is not correct, on Thursdays, I get a report. I go through that report, I send to the schools, each school, which students' addresses need to be fixed. So that's on Thursday. Then, once that's all updated in there and the student is assigned to the stop, it goes, First View does their download on Tuesdays. So it's a process. So it's not something that happens in real time, and I'm trying to explain that to parents as they call me or contact me. So if you can get that word out too, if anyone's asking you. So with that said, I have told parents, it might take a week to 2 weeks to get everything updated and to keep trying. The other concern with the app is they can't put 2 addresses. We're going to address this with First View. It can either be your home address or the daycare or whatever. Right now, they're not working with dual addresses. I don't know if that makes sense, but so some of the parents are like, oh, I can see my home, but I can't see the other one. So I asked them which one is your priority, and I will put it in that way for now. And eventually we'll get this worked out. It's going to take time. It's a new app. There are a lot of bugs to fix. And to tell you the truth, right now, it's not my priority. Mm-hmm. I hate to say that, but right now we're still in school startup, and I have to get the students all taken care of first for bus stops. So it will be worked out, I promise. It's something that I'm gonna continue to follow and address. So, other than that, and the other part with that, we're trying to make sure I have a dashboard on my computer, so I can see which buses are actually able to track and which are not. So again, when parents don't see data, I'm aware, I see it, and again, something we're trying to fix. Other than that, First Student has been doing great. They have Cheryl, who is doing a lot of the updating of routes and stops for me, which has taken some of that time off of me, and she's doing a great job. And we started with 2 routes open in Timberlane who did not have permanent drivers, but they've been covering them. Unfortunately, the second week of September, we ended up with 2 more drivers out for personal reasons. We're hoping they'll be back in the next couple weeks, but First Student is covering those routes as best they can, and also covering sports, because as you know, that's a major concern. So as of now, we have not done any bus offloads in Timberlane, knock on wood, but I suspect that there might be a few coming, only because the situation is just getting dire. Chandra is working to get some drivers in from other terminals to come and help us and relieve some of that stress, okay? Other than that, our minibuses have had a good start. Some of them were arriving late to the schools. They've pretty much fixed that. It's always the up and down at the beginning of school.
Always.
So if you have any questions?
Jen?
Thank you for all the work you put into this. I would like to share with you that, of course, not everybody is going to be happy. I heard you talk about a couple of instances, but the overwhelming majority of the people that I've heard from, it has been positive, and they're very happy. The biggest complaint I've got is, like you said, the app.
Yeah.
And I always tell people, well, just what time's your kid's bus? What did you do last year? What time is their bus stop? Just go by your bus stop time. So I wondered, is the app, is it worth continuing with? Does it prove useful?
Can I speak to the app? The issue with the app, it's a reliability issue. So it's worth it, but it's not your sole, like, I wouldn't rely on it.
Right, and that's kind of what I say to
Like,
parents.
You know what time you're supposed to be there, and it's nice if you see your bus coming.
Well, it's we're in a region with bad cell phone coverage. That's exactly the reasoning, one of the reasons why.
That was my next point. So when you go off of your Wi-Fi in your house, and you go out, if you get on that bad Wi-Fi, the cable Wi-Fi, the Xfinity Wi-Fi, the app is, and then sometimes there's issue with data with your phone.
Yeah.
Like if you're sitting in your car at the spot, and it's not the same kind of coverage you get when you're in your house with fast internet. So the app's reliability gets challenged a little bit, and we talked about when if there's an offload or you're using a different bus, it's irrelevant. And so I would just, to Jen's point, I would just rely on what's the time you're supposed to be there. You know, the hard part is a lot of times now we have some buses running a little bit behind schedule in different districts for different reasons. And, you know, they like to see the bus coming down the street,
Right.
but it's not even in real time. Sometimes it's off 5 or 6 minutes anyway. Even when it's working, it's still
updates
off.
like every
Right.
10,
Correct.
20
That's
That's
seconds.
what I'm hearing.
That's pretty much, so that's been the bulk of the complaints I've had. The other, I mean, I don't know how many parents watch these meetings, but the other plug, I don't know if there's a way to, and I know we send it out every year, but if there's a way kind of, a little bit later after the dust has settled, that before school, parents are getting so many emails about update your info snap, sports register. There's so many emails that come through. But I have shared with 4 parents in the past 2 weeks, had no idea about the Timberlane app. I love the Timberlane app.
Yeah, so I'll have, you know, Ken can send out a reminder for, you know, about the Timberlane app and to update your information.
I'm shocked how many people don't even know it exists, but you can access the bus routes, the power, like everything is right
Activity
there.
stream, calendar, it's all pretty, Ken does a great job managing that, so.
Yeah, and then the one other comment, I'm sure you're going to look at it, but there's, just speaking for my neighborhood alone, we have a high school, middle school combined bus that comes by haven't noticed in the morning if it's been fixed. And then 5 minutes later, we have another high school bus that comes by, which is listed as high school only, CTE. But it's the same stop, but nobody gets on.
These are the things I don't know until the data comes in.
Okay.
It was because I did not want to put all of the buses as high school, middle school buses. I was trying to keep the high school areas where there were more kids on just the high school bus.
I was just thinking like that, like
Yeah.
those, that's one example where, you know, that bus wouldn't even need to come up in through there and would shave off even more time.
Right, right.
Agreed.
And actually, I've kind of followed one of the middle school, high school buses in Plastow, seeing what's going on, and I actually made a couple changes that are starting tomorrow, taking off some stops from a bus that doesn't need to go in that area. So as I come across them, you know, we can fix them, but I just want to let you know that eventually what it would end up being then is every bus having high school, middle school.
Sheila?
The only question I really have for you is any feedback from the drivers? How are they feeling about it, about the mixed buses? Are they getting, is it good, bad, indifferent? They're with them.
They have been very good. I have not heard any complaints. I have worked very closely with the first student office, and especially with Cheryl, who is doing the routing, and she's also the union rep. And there has been nothing.
Well, I'm just,
nothing
you know, they're the
bad
ones
so
driving
far.
the mix of kids,
The year is
so.
young.
You know, I was a little, you know, concerned at the
Right.
beginning when they had to pick their routes because they were all in a you know, of the unknown and losing their route that they've had.
They've had,
And, you know, change is always hard. But they have all stayed with their routes that they had, route number they had from last year. Because I did cater to each driver, knowing how they drive and what
Okay,
they
no,
wanted
I was
to
just
do.
wondering if there was any feedback from them on the change, that's
Yeah.
all.
None
Okay.
so far, nothing.
Thank you.
Okay, Dr. Metzer?
Final thought, no, and you're gonna kill me for doing this, and I'm not advertising, but, you know, we're in this age of personalized learning. You know, Sandy has really gotten into personalized busing. Like, she's making adjustments on a case by case, and I mess up your priority list sometimes too, because I come into her office with, you know, people that have reached out, and she's made adjustments on an individual basis to make this work, so it's going to take a little bit of time, but I think you'll be able to get to everybody, and, you know, to Jen's point, there's a lot of families that have benefited from this, and it'd be great if we could say every single person benefited, but, you know, it was the greatest good for the greatest number of people in terms of busing.
Right.
And I just want to say thank you for the personalized approach, because I know what happens when you make a change. There's going to be 3 or 4 more requests followed that when
Right.
that gets out, and that's
Right.
okay. It's okay for me to say, because you're doing all the work.
He's
but-
just doing it, yeah.
But no, it's really personalized, and I think people, the people that I've spoken to really appreciate what you've done for them. I mean, it changes their lives in the morning.
No, I
They
did.
can go to work.
I commend that, because that's exactly what it was, and I think one of the points that really just hit you was Lee's comment about 6 hours a day is saved. And when
How
it-
he added that up so quickly.
Yeah, no. I guess when you're quiet and just going through stuff like over there, you can do that. But that was the stuff, and you know, at least I felt that I could see that in this potential. It just had to be, exercised and stuff. So I commend you for doing that and stuff. And I'm glad to see that, you know, you're talking with first student. They're involved now in the routing process, and you know, carrying that around, you know, because it's good to have that in multiple areas, that knowledge. Kim?
Just a specific example, out on Back Road in Danville, because I talked to a parent. That bus was coming at 6:05 out there. It is now coming at 6:30. Those kids are saving, and actually, you probably have kids riding the bus now out there, where you
Yeah.
didn't before. You probably have more people, because my friend was like, well, I'll do that now, because it's only saving me 40 minutes driving back and forth. And these are people that have been driving their kids back and forth for 8 years. So Danville really appreciates it.
Thank you.
It's made a huge
It helps
difference
some,
out there.
but it doesn't help all, but, and like I said, Plastow was the only town that I did not really do the big chop to. And I
Helps-
think that
helps
if I,
most.
Most. Most.
help most, but I think that they could benefit also if it was
Well,
revised.
it's just like in the previous years, that the routes that were created as you moved in each year, they didn't change that much. So a lot of this knowledge that that the district is now getting with this new approach, that can be just, it's going to be refined over years and stuff. And then now you can, like you said, bring in maybe more plastics in there and how to best reorganize that aspect of it.
Right.
So.
Right. And I know there was also some concern about the waiting in the afternoon when the high school kids get on the bus, and waiting. Truthfully, it goes by very fast. I have been out there on the bus. The high school kids get on there. I see the kids walking down towards the middle school on their buses. They've got that 4 or 5 minutes. It gives them time to get on the bus, and then they're on the bus. And once the middle school gets out, they're actually out of the middle school and on the buses within 3 minutes. It's just the stragglers that they don't let the buses leave until they make sure everyone is on a bus. So that time sitting there, I think is, you may gain it there, but you lost it on your actual route.
Right.
I didn't anticipate that it was going to be as much time as some people had really thought.
I think some people just kind of blew it way out there.
When you look at it, a 10-minute, it's a 10-minute difference.
Yeah.
But those middle school kids, they are out so fast. I swear sometimes they're out before, maybe just a couple minutes before. But even at 1 or 2 minutes, it does make a difference.
Yeah.
And then those, they're moving quickly.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Sandy.
Thank you, Sandy.
You're welcome.
Coming
Let
back.
me know what
Thank
else
you.
you want to have for the future. I'll get it for you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right, the next one is enrollment class sizes.
You have two documents that you requested. One is the high school classes, and the other is, well, it's all the enrollment, but this is by course, and this is by class.
By grade.
Yes, so hi, good evening. So I've asked, actually, Mr. Putterson and Mr. Woodworth is here in case you have questions about high school enrollment. But as Dr. Metzler was just explaining, so you have 2 different documents that have student enrollment data on them. The way that we went ahead and broke this out for you, from grades pre-K up through grade 8, we broke it out by school, by grade level, and then for grades K through 5, you'll see the number of sections, that would be classrooms per building and for each grade level, and you'll see the enrollment in each of those classrooms. At the middle school, we did that by team. The structure at the middle school and scheduling changes once those students go to the middle school. So we're no longer talking about isolated classrooms where students are assigned to one teacher. They are instead placed on a team. Those teams share students, and students rotate between their core classes, their unified arts classes. So you'll see how many students are on each team in grades 6, 7, and 8.
Can I just interrupt 1 second?
Yes.
This sheet.
We have to 6.
Yeah, it only goes up.
Oh, okay.
Something cut off.
We can
Okay.
get the second sheet of it, probably.
Okay, so there's a back to it.
Oh, maybe I missed the back to it.
That's okay. Keep going. I just want to
Okay.
let you know that we don't
We
have.
we can certainly get that for you.
It's online, though, I think.
And
It's online, so we can go.
it's posted, okay. And then for grades 9 through 12 on this chart, the one that you just referenced that you do not have on the back, but once you look at it electronically or digitally, you'll see that we have the total number of students across grades 9 through 12, but then you have the associated Power School report that breaks down student enrollment by course and by section at the high school level. This report, we went back to what we provided you last year and the year prior to that and made attempts to make sure that we were giving you the same information in the same way so that you could do comparisons if you choose. So before we kind of talk about any questions or if you want to talk about specific grade levels or buildings, I just wanted to point out a couple things. So for our pre-K program, those class sizes are governed by state law, not by school policy. So our policy, IIB, dictates maximum class sizes beginning in kindergarten all the way up through 12th grade. So our pre-K program, especially at TLC, where we have a large percentage of students receiving special education services, those class sizes are really evolving as students come in and out of the program, dependent on their age. Some students may be half-day pre-K, some may be in 2 half-day programs because they receive various services. So did not feel it's really such fluctuating data and so specific to individual cases that I've given you just the totals for our pre-K program. That being said, you will see for kindergarten, I did break that down by section. There are 2 classrooms based on some very recent changes in enrollment at Atkinson Academy. You'll see we have a full-day kindergarten at Atkinson of 21 and a grade 1 also at 21. I've highlighted those because we've had some transfers into the district, which has pushed us over maximum class size in that building for those 2 grade levels. So policy IIB maxes out kindergarten grade 1 at 20. So we're now exceeding that. So in bringing these numbers to you, I'm also coming with a request to allow us to waive class size for those 2 classes at Atkinson. And I will say I've talked to Kathy Deotis as well, and she has made efforts to put an additional aide, paraeducator, in those rooms to be able to support students and the teacher of those classes. But that is a request that we're coming to you to request action, so, from you.
I'll make a motion to waive policy and allow 21 in Atkinson Academy in full-time kindergarten and first grade.
Second.
Thank you.
Motion's been made by Sheila, seconded by Jen.
A question on it? So that's allowed to be done? What's the state?
States.
It's, so our policy is 20.
That's
Our
Timberland's
policy's
policy.
well below the state.
It's well
Yes.
below the state.
Usually 4 to 6 less, right?
Yes, I
Ballpark.
believe so.
I think
yes.
it's 22 or 24. The state is the requirement,
Yep.
but ours is 20.
It's definitely higher.
We're within.
Okay.
We're well within.
Okay, we'll call a question. All those in favor? Unanimous?
Thank you. So beyond that, you'll see this is kind of the general breakdown. I know you had also questioned the NASDAQ projections. We do not have that data yet for this year. We'll bring that to you and share that with you once we have it available. But so this is still in flux. I did want to also make that point. So I put the date of, we generated this data, started pulling it from Power School last Friday. So we do still have some students and families transferring in and out. We may or may not have some students who are listed on a class list who have not yet showed up yet. So these numbers really until October 1st, and even after that, but are still in flux. So this reflects what we captured basically last Friday.
It's a snapshot in time.
Snapshot in time.
Thank
So,
you.
And on the NESDEC, just so people are aware, the NESDEC is based off the October 1st enrollment.
That's right.
So they start their work, so that typically could come in anytime from late October up until about Thanksgiving, whenever they send it,
Yeah.
right, ballpark?
Yes.
We try to get our numbers to them right away, but we're not the only school in the queue, so.
Right.
Do you know where we stand compared to other surrounding schools as far as class size?
Not right now. I couldn't speak to that, but we can certainly look at that.
I just want to, because we're looking at this, just so the public is aware, we're looking at, class sizes in grade 1. Atkinson has 1 class at 21, the others are 20.
It's the both
Most of
sides.
them
Thank
are
you.
15, 16, 18 kids in a class. Grade 2,
Thank you.
1 class has 20 at Pollard, the rest are under 20, between 14 and 19. Grade 3, we're looking at, again, Pollard's up at 22 in most of their classes. The rest of them all, somewhere between 14 and 18. Grade 4, 20, and I think grade 4 is where the, by policy and by the state, what the state allows those increase. So you're looking at 24 kids in some classes, and then 16 to 20 in others. Grade 5, Atkinson has 1 section with 26. The rest of them are 25 and under. So
Can I just speak to that briefly? This is a really hard thing to compare for a lot of reasons. Well, we're a cooperative school district, we wouldn't move, unless it was an interesting transfer request, we wouldn't move kids just to make the numbers work in between elementary schools.
Right.
Where a single district could. Some of the urban districts, the numbers are really high, much higher than these.
Right.
You know, and some of, but you get to a place like, for instance, one of our schools, just say, for instance, it's just an arbitrary number. If you only had 30 second graders, right?
Yep.
You know you're gonna have 2 classes of 15.
Sure.
So they luck out kinda. And then
They do.
sometimes, like Atkinson, with the numbers you're talking about, you hit 42, or 41, and so one is 21 and one is 20, and, we would come and ask for an additional staff member if we got a couple more over, and the principal certainly would advocate for it. So we appreciate you waiving the class size. But I think that's a really hard question, is how do we compare and who's like us, right? So, we're not looking at Nashua, or we're not,
Well, my only point of saying that is that some of, looking at these elementary numbers, I'm not talking about middle school, high school, looking at these elementary numbers, and I do agree, students definitely benefit from smaller class sizes. And I think as a district, we recognize that in our policy by keeping those numbers below what the state allows. But even further, looking at what we actually have here, we have a lot of really great class sizes. And I understand that the population can be challenging, and and there's all of that to contend with, but I just wanted to make sure, parents heard that these,
And principals, the principals, that's really their job, to know their students and which classes, they perform best in. So they put students in particular classes based on instructors and skill levels and class sizes and all those things. Those are adjustments that are made at the school level and through Sandy, so.
Thank you.
I hate making assumptions, but I'm going to make one anyways here. I really do. I hate that. Grade 6, Team 1, 88 students.
Yes.
Team 2, 88 students. They have 4 core classes.
Yes.
Can we basically say 22 a class?
Yes.
Sorta, kinda?
Sort of, kind of, not really.
Okay.
Sort of, kind of. Every effort is made to evenly divide those
Right.
students amongst their core classes, but it's really dependent on the students.
Needs.
That's right, yes.
Okay.
I can say in 7th grade, one thing that I will point out, and I think you do, I think Mr. Dowd actually just passed out the backside,
Yes,
so
we
you
have
may
the
be able to
backs.
look at that. So in 7th grade, I've had conversations with the middle school administrative team, and their team sizes are quite large compared to the other 2 grades in that building. So 296 students, one team of 100, 2 of 98. In 7th grade, in math, for example, we begin pre-algebra. Students begin pre-algebra. So in addition to the 4 cores, you have another math class. So the students who are in pre-algebra are pulled out, and now are scheduled. So some classes might be even larger in 7th grade. So looking at that 100 and dividing it by 4 doesn't work out as well. Same thing would be the case for algebra in 8th grade. And so anytime that we have programming of that nature, it's not a clear-cut divide by 4 and you get your
These
average
numbers
class
are
size.
actually much lower than when my kids went through.
Yep.
A lot lower.
We did have 4
A lot lower.
teams, that's right. So we had 4 teams per grade level in that building until
Right.
very recently. So we now are at 3 teams, and that occurred through attrition and students' enrollment going down.
Enrollment
But
going
we went down by, 1 team in each grade level progressively over several years.
Right.
So,
I've got one more question. High school.
yes.
Thank you for putting this up early, by the way, because my mind was going in the high school. So, scheduling is an issue. Scheduling is tough. Yeah, scheduling's hard.
Yes.
Trying to make everything fit into these kids' schedules. Because I'm looking at, I'm trying to come up with a,
Pottery?
no. Creative workshop. Creative writing workshop. 25, 25. And then the second semester, there's 15 and 9.
Yes.
So I mean, just so a little bit of background on scheduling, as you pointed out, it is difficult. It starts actually right now, if you want to say that. Because right now, we're actually working on the program of studies for next year.
Right.
So a lot of the decisions made about the program of studies determines what courses get run, what courses, things like that. So, it's almost a year from what the numbers you're looking at now, to kind of just think about that. But, in January, the program of studies goes out, kids start thinking about the courses that they want to take.
Yes.
February, kids put in their requests. We build a schedule based upon those requests. We try to meet the needs of the students.
Correct.
And so between February and then in March and April, tentative schedules are built. Kids meet with their counselors. They look at what they want to take versus what they, have to make choices about, because there's so many courses that are, conflicting. And so kids have to make a choice. What do I take? What don't I take? May and June, kids are still making those decisions. In that entire time, we might lose teachers due to whatever reason, and we have to now change, what is happening and what that skill set is of that teacher, and
I guess my question is that once you have these schedules made,
correct?
Okay, teachers get their class list, and then you see, one teacher's got 28 kids, the next teacher has 22 kids, the next teacher might have 19 kids, is what I'm seeing.
And so it's although, I mean, in theory, it's easy to balance, but in practicality, you can't just do that, because kids, the way that the periods are and what other courses kids are taking, I can't just siphon kids off of this class and just magically dump them.
But that's what I'm saying, it's such a balancing act because of everything else they're taking, it's not just that one class.
I'm sorry.
No, an example of that would be band or orchestra. So if a student is enrolled in band or orchestra, which is period 3, and we have 2 sections, you've referenced creative writing workshop. If we happen to have 2 sections running, 60 kids register, or 28, we have ideally 2 sections of equal number. If one of them, the scheduling, the programming schedules that class during the block when
Period 3.
It forces certain students into certain blocks because of constraints that are built into their schedule by their own choices. So we go through a process, Mark, the deans, counselors, to eyeball sections and say, this is excessively high compared to the other one. Are there kids in here that we could move and it won't have an impact? So that's a manual process that happens midsummer. I mean, those things happen.
Right.
And they try to get to what they can, but it's
And I mean,
it's
the
not
other,
you
yeah,
can't
It's not,
fit
you're
every need.
just arbitrarily
Right.
putting kids in here,
Right.
and it's all goes into the schedule.
Right.
I mean, the other piece is we also have students, even though the schedule is created with relatively balanced sections, or balanced as best we can, once the school year starts, you might have some kids who just don't show up. They've moved over the summer. You have other kids that walk in on day 1 and they have to get scheduled. They have to get put into sections that fit what their needs are and what their wants are. And then we have other kids that, even though they were scheduled for a class that in January they said that they wanted, come September, their situation has changed. They no longer want that class, and they drop it. And we have kids dropping and adding classes in the first couple weeks of school. So when this report was run on September 13th, that was actually the final add date. So we had kids still adding and dropping classes. And that adjusts and that changes class numbers. I mean, kids might, for whatever reason, drop the period that's period 1. Drop that class period 1.
What I'm trying to do is address the class size issue. And I'm trying to figure out, is it teacher versus students versus scheduling? What is the magic thing here? Because we seem to have you're not coming to us saying, oh, we need more, but yet we're getting complaints about class size. I don't know. I don't know what the
Well, that's
answer
kind of what I
is.
was trying to speak to earlier.
Yeah.
I don't know what the
It
answer
looks
is.
like the number's well under 20.
It's dependent
I
on,
look at
it's
all these
dependent on
sheets,
the student's
the numbers
schedule.
well
There's
under
some that are 25,
A private school
26.
The averages are, there's exceptions.
Right.
There might be exceptions, but the majority of your classes, what are you, well under
If you look
20?
at the class average.
I assume this is accurate.
The average class sizes.
Look at all these pages.
They're not gonna be something that anybody would look at and say there's a problem. But when you look at particular course, the way it ended up, or not the whole department, but you look at a particular teacher's
Right.
load or things like that, you're going to see some issues. And some of those issues have to do with the preference of what they wanted to teach. Some of it has to do with shifts that, Mark's alluding to, and kids' priorities come close to the end of the summer when we bring in the counselors and we have a week plus of a lot of change. Most of the change happens before the school starts. There's still some movement.
Right.
It does get impacted by first period, last period, flexibility issues for upperclassmen who have jobs and whatnot and want to shift their schedule.
Just want to come in late, sleep in.
And then suddenly that elective they had doesn't look as good to them or not. So that's the nightmare of the counselors and the deans in a way, because you make a plan based on what you think is going to happen, and then there's nuances of the scheduling that pit courses against each other.
Right.
Kids' motivations against it.
And some of this is still subject to change, those half-year courses for semester two.
For semester
They,
two.
those will
Absolutely.
fluctuate.
Kids are still going to be coming in after
Yes.
Christmas saying, I changed my
Absolutely.
mind, I want in, I want out, I
Yes.
want this, I
Yes.
want that.
But
Yes.
we do recognize there are a couple of courses that ended up with class sizes beyond what we would ideally want. One of those situations I couldn't address with you directly right now. We understand, we thought we had a little bit different
Right.
scenario than we ended up with. So some things, we're aware, we do sympathize with that concern. And if you're a teacher who has class sizes that average over 25, you're going to have less time to dedicate to each student. So those are issues that are very realistic, and we're going to always be trying to avoid that.
I mean, historically, we know American studies, world studies
Those
tend
are
to have high ones.
well, our
because they're
maximum
double
enrollment in
periods.
those courses. Those are unique courses because they're
Right.
team taught. They're double credit
Both my
courses.
children took 'em,
Right,
and
two
What
do we need
teachers.
from
So
the
our
board?
maximum class size in those courses is 40. That being said, we do have several classes that are in the high 20s. Many
doing
of them are social studies classes,
Right.
some math classes. And I would just add, a consideration and something that I have had personal conversations with teachers about who do have high class sizes, is facilities-wise. You're talking about the facility earlier. We're moving and training and encouraging our teachers to do more project-based learning, collaborative work, facilitating student conversations and really student-led learning. And with a class that size, with all of the furniture, the bodies in the room, it does get to a point where, teachers have come back and say, I'd love to do some of these activities, I don't have the space. So that's where we start to have questions about how many sections realistically should we be running, and then we have conversations about staffing. So it's all part of the process that you are referencing.
Just quickly, I continue to be disappointed with the number
APs.
of AP courses
Yep.
and the enrollments in these courses.
Yep.
I will calculate out how many were down again this year, but I
Yep.
just ran the
Yep.
numbers,
Yep.
and it's disappointing.
And what I can say.
You don't, I don't need a response.
No, it's
Rhetorical.
duly noted. One thing I will say, though, is it would be interesting to look at, and we could share with you the number of requests versus the number of students who follow through and take the course. And that's something that we talk about regularly and have conversations with our teachers who have an AP teacher PLC. But looking at really promoting it, and it's the board goal that you're talking about this year, and we've been working on that. But these numbers, again, tell part of the story. They show who is in the classroom right now, and then looking at how many students actually request these courses prior to today and don't take it. That's another conversation, and that's where we can maybe catch some of those students and having conversations about what we can do about that.
Yeah, for a district this size, it's way, way too low. And then I also am disappointed here. I think it was last year, it was touted how many students were in these engineering design classes, Mr. Pedersen, how large the enrollments are, and that now I look at the upper level engineering courses and they're very low enrolled. as are the computer science courses. We have got to do a better job about getting these students up to speed in computer science and engineering and coding.
You know, we've made, we have a new teacher, and it's hopefully going to have an impact on quality and the energy that, you know, kids have regarding some of the courses that are computer courses, program courses, et cetera. But then we also have courses in engineering that, when they're a capstone course, where somebody's worked towards it, there are not that many kids that have room in their schedule to take 3 or 4 engineering courses. So the numbers drop off sometimes as they become upperclassmen, because now they're making sure they get their requirements done, or they're trying to hold on to a music program, or, you know, they're making some difficult choices. It's not all because the course isn't good or because there isn't interest there, but you'll see people try out engineering early. Some will go 2 courses, some will go 3. It's very unusual for a kid to be able to do 4 years of engineering. The ones who do are really focused on that.
And again, I'm sorry, we should not be offering that many engineering courses at the expense of the core courses. I don't like to see 25 students in an Algebra 1 class, because if you don't get Algebra 1,
You're all done.
you're all done.
You're
I
not
don't
gonna-
like
you're not
to
gonna
see
do well
that
in an
many in a
engineering
freshman
course.
class.
You know,
Yeah,
we
so,
try- this
so,
is
I'm
a
sorry, it
conversation.
needs
This
to
is the
be,
balance, right? We're trying to offer, you know, really high level courses for our students who need that because of their goals and aspirations. But we're also, you know, understanding that there's an impact. If you were to ask me what would be a solution, you know, I think obviously continually work on the quality of our instruction like we do, continually try to motivate students to take challenging schedules, but also make sure you're able to staff adequately to do both. You can't, you know, we probably need to advocate for an extra teacher or 2 if we're going to be looking at that disparity, and we're not, you know, we're not hoping to give up on the flexibility, the wonderful opportunities that we have by, you know, having courses to offer in repeat courses that, you know, really have great rewards for the kids who get through them. So,
but
you know,
those
that's
same kids, I'm sorry, I'm going to push back here. Those same kids are the kids that should be enrolling in those AP Science courses. And
Which
I,
kids?
the kids that you're talking about enrolling in some of these engineering courses, or that will need a math background or a computing background, I'm just going to drop this, but I can't. I think that it's unfair to be putting this much energy into a program where you have so few students at our upper levels, and that the fundamental courses, those teachers are stacked to the gills.
So can I just point out that Project Lead the Way and the College Board have actually paired together. They support one another. So
I'm well aware of
okay.
that.
So
partnering.
they're actually suggesting that kids do both, and they're not trying to pit them against one another. They're suggesting that students take both, you know, AP Chem and some of those engineering courses. So that both of those organizations are saying that they can be working together to help these kids and get those kids what they really want and get those kids what they really need.
They certainly can, and you have, how many engineering courses? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's about as many engineering courses as I had in an undergraduate engineering program.
And-
So, I'm sorry, you've got to make a decision as to how much you're going to put into a program like this, knowing that these kids are going into engineering and what they need, and you have to be aware of this. Our AP courses in the math, science, and computers, it's all going that way. I love engineering, don't get me wrong, I'm not wanting to cut this program, but this is the 3rd year I've seen this enrollment, and I don't think it's fair to the greater good of the Timberlane students to have that much into these. So I'm sorry, it's nothing against the teachers. I would love to see these numbers at 30 in all these courses, but it's just not happening.
Jen?
I just want to ask a question, because I'm hearing what you're saying about these AP classes, and how are we trying to prepare kids to take them, encourage them to take them, and, you know, these math classes, every student is going to take Algebra 1, correct? Every student is going to take geometry, every student is going to take Algebra 2. But I look at the class sizes for some of these math classes that should be preparing them to move to that next level, and they're pretty high.
They are high.
So is that having an impact on how many kids truly are able to, get the attention that they need to grasp the concepts, to be able to have them feel confident enough to take those AP level classes?
I think that when you look at the accelerated math students who come in and take, say, geometry early, it's not impacting them. Those class sizes aren't impacting the AP field. It's because those are the kids that are on a path to have those options junior and senior year.
It does impact them, though. I have one in the class. They feel it. They feel the high class sizes. They do. They feel it. I'm not saying that they won't be strong enough to take those classes, but I'm saying, would they get more of the support that they need if those earlier class sizes were smaller, to help them feel more confident in their skills to go to that next level toward the AP classes?
Yeah. Can't really say. I think it's a very individual decision by student. And many of our AP students are taking multiple AP classes. And sometimes it's a personal decision of, do I want to take 3? Do I want to take 4? Do I want to take 2? So can't really speak to that. I hear where you're coming from, and I think it's certainly a conversation and something that should factor into our decision making. But there are too many variables, I think, that go into those choices that students make as to whether or not they take it. But certainly communicating with them what those courses are about, so they have adequate and accurate information about what to expect in those courses, that I think is crucial. So it's not something, so big and weighty and scary, but really having an open conversation with them, saying this is what it's like, hooking them up with current AP students so they can talk about what the experience is like being in that class, taking an exam.
Yeah, but my point is, is targeting those kids earlier on as freshmen, as sophomore, in some of those fundamental classes that they're going to need to succeed in.
We try to support the kids who really struggle with math, with the lab, when they come in. So perhaps 60, 70 kids will have that type of support. Those kids don't project necessarily, to be the ones that would take an AP course.
Sure.
It might be feasible that they would get to an accelerated course if they get the attention they need and progress really well. We look at probably 10 to 12% of the kids in the school will take an AP course right now, and we could say, how do we get that number to 15%? Or, those are things we should be talking about. And what would make that happen? Maybe class size is a factor in terms of some of our accelerated classes that are high. I know as a teacher teaching an accelerated class, while it's easier sometimes in terms of classroom management and the kids' natural desire to be academic-minded, it also demands a lot more in terms of sometimes preparation to keep those kids engaged. So you're right. I think that we could look at, if we're at 25, would get it to 20 be a goal? Maybe. And what would that impact be? We've talked to Dr. Metzler about what flexibility we have to add a teacher in a department or two. Or you have to then say, are we going to deprive some other course we're offering? And that becomes the tough value judgment as we try to grow a course, introduce new courses, and offer really a full range of AP courses and accelerated courses. It is the challenge, and we try every year to try to get a good balance with that. Sometimes we have things that happen that make it more difficult, and this year we had a couple of those.
Okay, thanks.
One thing I think would be a really good idea to follow up on top of this, just this topic, this is for the students that go to the actual buildings of our district. The other part I think we should probably look into would be the VLAX aspect, the same type of data for course offerings. What's the student population that's taking courses? nobody on this board, I believe, knows.
We're happy to put that together.
Put that together, and then I'd also like, I think it'd be a good idea, is that with the evening division, and do both of them simultaneously, sort of as two topics back to back, to talk about the evening division as well.
Sure.
Okay, so we could put that on a future agenda, and then we'll agree on date kind of thing, offline. Okay.
This was
Nothing
great.
else?
Thank you very
Thank you.
much for the
Thank you very much.
information.
Post-employment benefits liability. This topic. Just want to sort of walk us through this document?
Sure. Good evening. So you should have, if I'm not mistaken, you should have one page which is captioned post-employment benefits, which has two individual breakdowns, and then you should have several pages of estimates behind that. So the first page for post-employment benefits, the request was, what had we paid in the prior year, and how was that broken down? So the total that we paid was $251,493, broken down 37,000 by sick leave, 77,000 vacation time, 2,100 compensatory time and retirement time, 134,911 and 87 cents. You can see how those are broken down. Well, I call these post-employment benefits. I think that's how we've captioned them. They're not necessarily retirement benefits. They're not. It's not. If someone separates from the district, these are the
They
costs.
leave, they get another job, they
Exactly.
retire, whatever, okay.
Yeah. So it's really not post-employment. It's paid as part of their separation, and that can be a retirement, or it can be leaving the district on any number of for different reasons. The next category is, in total, what did we have if we looked at those factors as a maximum exposure protected at the end of this year? And you can see where those totals are. Totals close to $3 million.
Is that for all like 700 and something employees?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. And that assumes, for example, if there's vacation time, that no vacation time would be taken between now and the end of the year, just to see where that max would be, making no assumptions on that.
Just as another part of this, I just want to understand if this has probably been aggregated into these figures. Is one of the things, I got an inquiry from, part of the process for the sick bank, and that whole process of, drawing on that, the board's got to, or the chair's got to give the approval for it. One of the things that I had done is I asked Dr. Metzler if he could provide a sort of, what's in this sick bank? And I got to figure, and I don't know the exact figure off the top of my head, but I know it's like 700 to 750, hours days in that bank, which is how that program is implemented. I've also just got some information today on how that program is implemented. But my point is that, with that number of days in that sick bank, and how much it comes out to be, just, I'm throwing out a number, of an average type, person that would be drawing on that. It's about over 200K. So would that 200K be part of one of these, is part of this allotment? Or would it be added on top of that? Because
it wouldn't necessarily be part of this allotment. It would be added on top. Now, when we think about sick bank, that's nothing that would get paid out at any point in time. It is part of a separation. That's paid out because someone's out, and in their place, we have a sub. So we do have a long-term sub line and regular sub line in the budget for coverage on that. So we would pay it out to them, but really our incremental cost, because we're paying the employee anyway, our incremental cost is going to be the additional incremental expense is the amount that we're paying that sub to cover their class.
Okay, I see how you're doing that. Okay. All right.
I had the question on the next page.
Certainly. So the next page you're referring to, so we have 3 pages of what the what the separation would look like under different scenarios for perhaps 3
Correct.
sample employees. So the first one's the TTA teacher sample.
Right. So my question is this: where did you get that figure?
Which one?
The salary.
I believe that was just it was a random.
You just picked a random number. You didn't go by averages. You didn't go by.
Correct.
You just
Looked into
okay.
where could a.
Because I was looking at the
scale?
schedule, and I'm like, where does this number come from?
Yeah, we're really
I couldn't-
trying to keep it random just for demonstration
Okay,
purposes
all
only.
right.
So
That's all I was asking, because I was thinking real numbers. I don't.
well, and if we fit it on there, then the question would be, well, gee, who's at
Yeah,
that step and getting ready to retire and
Trying to figure that one out. Okay.
right.
Thank you.
So I can walk you through just so you see, and they're going to be a little bit different by category. The box on the right-hand side of the page, you'll see where the total salary is, really where the longevity is based on where they are per their contract. Compensatory time, typically you wouldn't have any for TTA staff. Vacation time, typically you wouldn't see that. There may be a sick day redemption, and then there may be a retirement incentive if they qualified for that. In this case, sample employee did have that retirement incentive. If you go to, and this is how they can contrast a little bit, we have sample employee number 2, if you will, the TSSU union member. A similar breakdown. There may be no longevity payout in that case, and a small retirement incentive if the employee was with the district over a certain number of years. And the last is a similar estimate for administrators or all other groups. In this case, you see what the employee's total salary is, longevity if they qualify. There'd be no compensatory time, but in this case, the employee, based on their class, would have an ability to redeem vacation time. There would be a sick time redemption, and then this particular employee would qualify for a retirement incentive. So if someone were to retire, this is what it would look like for their estimate.
I don't know if I'm understanding this right. So on page 2, we're just looking at the TTA example that you provided. So if we have a teacher who's been teaching for, in this case, 30 years? A 30-year teacher retires, their last paycheck is $35,883.
It's a fictitious number.
Fictitious employee.
So
it
their
could
last
be.
day of work, they would have a $35,000 paycheck?
In retirement incentive alone, or not in retirement incentive, but those separation costs would total that.
So is that, I mean, we have a lot of teachers who have been working for a long time who retire. That's what we see every year?
But that basic salary is, the salary number is not correct to be in.
Yeah, it's on the higher end.
That salary number is not right. There's nobody here that makes that money
As a teacher.
as a teacher. So it's just to give you an idea of what it would look like, but it doesn't, the numbers aren't correct.
Typically, we wouldn't see a TTA type separation or retirement be that amount that much.
No.
No.
So.
That's
So
what I
this-
was
this-
asking.
They are substantial payouts when somebody retires who has been here for a long time. There is a lot of retirement liability sitting out there because you have a lot of teachers that.
Have a lot of years.
At the 15-plus step,
So
right?
I just don't understand how this is helpful, this
I-
page 2.
Really, it's just to demonstrate
know.
that this is
Just
the.
showing you.
To show us
How it's
Just an
calculated.
example
Yeah,
for
we had a
one
long
person.
conversation about how do you get to that payout number, and I said, well, give him a few examples.
Yeah, that's
I don't know
all.
why, you picked 75.
Yeah, it was part of the request
Yeah, it was
last time.
part
Right,
too,
it was-
so that's-
it
there were
was.
Samples of it.
What threw me off was
Should have been more like
the
the
numbers,
executive
the salaries,
summary
because it wasn't,
Just like the previous.
Didn't match.
I couldn't figure it out.
Okay.
We gotta get out of this.
That's all.
Okay,
We should
so-
be into action items
So
versus
I do
information.
have an action item here. I would like this board to know for what the current liability to Timberlane is for the compensatory absences at the SAU level and for the retirement incentives at the SAU level, and some breakout as to what those entail.
Okay, so this is the current liability to Timberlane for SAU compensatory
Absences and retirement incentives.
and retirement incentives. Okay.
And that, I'm making a motion to direct,
I'll
to
second.
have the superintendent to have that no later than next Friday.
Do you need that?
I'm
Okay.
guessing that is a reasonable request. Wouldn't you have that number?
It would be, and that would be as of 6:30?
We can do it as of 6:30.
Okay.
Can you Would you be so kind as to clarify that
Repeat it.
motion?
The motion is to direct the superintendent to provide the chair with the Timberlane portion of the compensatory absences, outstanding liability at the SAU, and also the retirement incentives
Hold on, liability
outstanding.
At SAU and, I'm
You should
sorry.
just call them post-employment benefits.
No, that's not what I want to call those, no. That's a different category, correct?
That is a different line, yeah.
Should we just get the same four,
No, no.
subs?
No,
I
this is-
have you up until compensatory absences and outstanding liability at the SAU and Timberlane levels?
No, the Timberlane portion for SAU 55.
Yeah, the Timberlane portion, yeah.
And the same thing for the retirement incentives as of 6/30/2019.
Okay, that
And I
motion was
second.
Seconded by Sheila.
Just for a discussion, that's an easy numbers to get, correct?
Relatively, yeah.
6:30,
Yep, not too
19.
burdensome. I can get 'em.
I mean, is it a 5-minute thing? Is it a 5-hour thing?
No, it wouldn't be a couple hours probably, just to verify and vet. But we already have the numbers, so yeah, it wouldn't be more than a half hour. I don't think.
So you already have the numbers?
Yes. Yep. No, I don't have our portion. I don't have Timberlane's portion of it.
You have.
The
you have
underlying-
entire number.
Correct.
I'm happy, I can rescind my motion if you want. Well, no, this
I
is
could
a
just allocate
Timberlane
it.
meeting, so I'll ask for the Timberlane portion only.
So I'd have to allocate over by the percentage. I don't know, how long would that
You
take?
can just rough the percentage out. We'll go with 77. I don't want to make a
Perfect.
lot of work for you, I'm just looking for a
Perfect.
ballpark.
Thank you.
Okay.
Because
while-
I think it's changed substantially since the 2018 number.
So this is as of 6/30/19.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And that was seconded by?
Sheila.
And I would like that by the end of next week.
Okay, don't look at me. I'm not the one doing it.
No, the number's
you're
there.
seconding
We
it,
already
so
have
do
the
it.
I'm
number.
seconding it, but I'm not the one giving it to you. Jeff, do you get to go home after this?
Possibly, I might hang around. Does anyone
Okay.
keep me up?
I have,
Why do we have the school board budget?
well,
Well, we still have a motion on the
Yeah,
floor.
well, yeah, I was
Oh,
gonna say, where
sorry.
are you guys
So
going with this?
We're talking about something else
I have
now.
something else I need.
Oh, no, I mean, I thought.
I want to talk about this motion, the first and the second, and anything else after that?
Productive, not anyway.
Sorry,
And the
Brian.
intent is to have this information by Friday of next week? Okay.
Okay, call the question. All those in favor? Motion passes. Okay.
Good.
Yeah.
Jeff? Yeah. My turn. I need something.
Okay.
Okay. It's that time of year again, Jeff. I hate to do this to you, but I would like a salary line detail, please. Can I have one?
Salary line.
We have one out there.
I'd like to make a motion for a salary line detail. Fiscal year 2019, 2020. From date 7/1/2019 to date 6/30/2020. All info, including supplemental. In this format, please.
That's the format we had last year.
The format we had the final one that we got, that was the right one.
From 7/1/2019 to 6/30/2020, is that what you're saying?
Yep.
Salary line detail
This
for
year.
1920.
Who's on the property right now this year.
Including supplementals.
Including supplementals such as, give me something.
You mean like
Stipends,
those are in there.
certificates, longevity, all of that.
I don't know if you, is that all built into that salary
Yes, it
line
is.
detail? Okay.
Would you like to see?
No, I don't want to say, I'll take your word for it.
That's in the 139 pages.
Okay, so we're not building, it's not it's the same report.
Yeah.
I have the salaries report out there, 7/1/19 to 6/30/2020. I think in the format that you're looking for.
Is it's posted somewhere?
It's the budget, yeah.
Under the budget document? I don't know, I haven't looked.
Oh, yeah, it's the budget, though. And again, when I have that for budget purposes, I have all the supplementals, all the stipends, everything is in there,
Do it a second.
employees. But if an employee has changed, I don't have a separate.
Would you mind if I, do you
Document
have
for
it
that.
up?
I'll
Yeah,
second.
come on over.
Can I see?
Can I second?
How about
Yeah.
this? How about, we know what the data is, we'll go through the motion, we're gonna approve it, if Jeff's already got it all done.
I just want to
it's
see
ju-
what
You
it's
don't know
right
that we're gonna
first.
approve it. You better call the question.
So Jen is seconding it,
Yes, I am.
yes, thank you.
All right,
Okay, we'll just,
call the question. All those in favor?
we don't have it, we'll get it next time.
Yeah. I mean, if it's, you can take that offline. and if it's
Tried to
not-
be as specific as possible so that we wouldn't have to
Well,
do this 5 times.
the only thing is that when we do put that budget together, I roll forward the positions with the people who are in them. And when I do that, if someone's left, I don't
Right.
typically reflect the new person in that
Right.
position.
Okay.
Right.
That's the only thing. So when
Can
you
I say
say
that again? Because I feel like this is where we got hung up last year a little bit.
no, no,
Because
no,
they were,
no, this year actually makes perfect sense. This is the perfect scenario. What I do in developing the budget is I take the employees and the positions that we have, right, and I roll them forward into the next year with what their anticipated compensation would be based on contractual elements and all that. In a default year, I'm just simply copying from the previous year, and I'm rolling it forward. So if people have left or if they've passed away,
Let me make
it's
this,
not
let
good.
me- let me make
Right.
this really simple. I'll
I
ask the
understand what
question.
he's saying.
Go ahead.
When you provide this,
Yeah.
is Sheila going to see a name of someone that doesn't work here anymore?
Yes, probably.
That's not what she wants.
no.
No,
She wants the people that are currently in the jobs working.
I don't have that. I have
That's
that.
what she's asking for, so let's.
That's
not-
what I thought she was
want
asking
who's
for.
on,
I
I
know.
want to know who we're writing paychecks to.
Did you hear my question? It was like, are you gonna see a name of someone who's no longer working here? And that's gonna be the same conversation all over again, which
Yeah.
I'm not
Right,
interested
that's
in.
what
I know
I'm-
you're not interested in
yes.
having.
Thank you.
So if we're providing either the people that are currently
That's what I'm
here
saying. I have the budget.
don't have that,
I'm looking for, obviously, we have a director of curriculum and assessment, right? Or data and assessment that's now open.
yes.
We know whose name was in there. She's now left. And so that position's still going to be there, but it's just not filled.
But your salary line detail will show the person that left in that position.
But we still have that position open, so that's okay for me.
But there's two problems with what Sheila is, not what you're asking, two problems with your point on that, right? So it could be a name there, the person may have left and it may be vacant, or the person may have left and there might be a new person in the position already.
Right.
And you're not going to know that from that. You know that one because that's polarizing, you know that. But you're not gonna know that about a particular position at a building level. You're not gonna know whether or not there's a new person in that position or not. You're gonna see a name and go, this person doesn't work here anymore. And the next question, is it vacant or not?
Is the issue with the date being set, the 7/1 date, because from 7/1, we've had people leave and we've brought new people on? Is it more realistic to look at it
October
as
1st?
of October 1? Would that be more a salary line detail as of October 1 to reflect who we currently have?
Yes, however, I have to go through 500 lines probably or more to update and make sure that stipends are included and all of that to tie out. Are we looking to tie out to the budget number, or are we just looking to see who we have on staff and what they're paid? Because the budget report is the format that you liked it in last year. So I'm either going to show who we actually have and what we're paying them, or how we budgeted that, and that'll tie out to the budget.
Well, the issue is, one of the versions that we got did not have the supplemental involved in it, and that's all the stipends and the longevity and the certificates, and that was money. And that was not included in that number.
Mhm.
So we had to do a calculation to try to figure out what was included in that number, if you remember correctly. So that's why I'm looking for the stipends and I wanna,
By person or by position? Does that matter?
I don't think it matters.
Okay.
But it just,
So we're looking for the same thing that we ultimately got last year.
ultimately,
Just pushed out to the current year.
to this year.
Yeah.
Because before we get into this,
I just want
This
to
default-
make sure, like, we're very clear, so that
That's
we
why
we
I
don't end
tried
up
to
with
be
this back.
very
I don't want to do
clear
that.
on
That's
what
why
I
I'm
was
asking.
asking
So what
for.
you finally received did not have names of people no longer working here. I just want to be clear on it, because I really can't, I can't.
I can't either. I can't do it again. That's why I was trying to be very clear, because I can't do it again.
So if we have that list in budget format, it probably won't tie out to the budget.
let's do this. I think we know what we're asking for, and you're saying that is it already posted under the budget?
I posted it as part of the current year budget, what's out there and the employees that we had when that budget took place. If you'd like to take a look at that and see if that meets with what you're looking for, that'd be great.
With the additional costs associated by position.
That's correct.
So grade 1 teacher Atkinson, who also runs the student council and gets X
And
amount
has
of dollars.
longevity and.
Yeah, whatever they get, by position, right?
Well, it's by position, but in that case, longevity is under a longevity line,
Right.
perhaps, right? But it would show that teacher receiving longevity under that particular line where we're accounting for the longevity. Yes,
All right.
that's under the longevity line, so their name would be there with the longevity line. I'm more than, if it's the budget report that we had previously looked at, not previously, but it's a good report, it's been out there since probably July. Take a look at that. If you'd like something more current, last year I know it took probably 2 solid days to pull all of that data and go through. And right now, as you're probably aware, I do have some deadlines.
No, I'm aware.
So I would like to.
That's why I wanted to start now.
Yes, but if it is
Put it
a
in the
current,
queue.
if it is a current year, it literally took probably 2 solid days to pull that information in, to go through, make sure the stipends were correct. It's just not an easy format to get.
But we need to be careful, because a discussion like this, once again, it lends itself to the question, do they know who's working here and who's getting paid what? Of course we do, right? And if people weren't getting paid, right, Carl, they'd be here, right?
Right.
So, but that's the thing, that I think the request is pretty clear, it's just a matter, I need to make sure that we're not having that same discussion. I don't want to see names of people that aren't working here either on a list, right? So if it's by position, that's fine, if that meets the needs, if that meets the spirit of the request, that's great. Let's pump that thing
Yeah, the
out.
spirit of the request is to get what we got, the final version last year, except now we're gonna just take that and move it to this current year.
Yeah,
I just wanted to be clear that it didn't have names on it, that people that
Yeah.
no longer worked here, because
That was the thing on the early onset. I mean, there were ones that were
that wasn't at the
multiple
end.
years
That
that
still
were
wasn't at the
beforehand.
end? You sure, right? I'm not sure.
Remember, I saw, by
I
the
really haven't
end.
looked at it.
By the end, my
I gave
head
up-
was
I gave
spinning.
up by the end.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay,
Okay, so let's see if that's up there, and then
we'll look, see if it's up
So there's
there.
no vote.
Right, we need
Who's
to
gonna be the
follow up
point
with that,
person?
yeah.
Who's gonna take a look and then
No
let
vote.
me know?
What are we saying?
Is Sheila gonna be the point person? Kim?
I will get the information and I'll work with the board.
And then you just send it to me, like,
I'll send it to
that's
you.
exactly.
Bring it to the
or-
chair,
Okay.
we'll get it to the chair.
And a second on the floor before we move on.
I know there's a second on that, but if we're
No,
gonna take a
you
look
voted.
at
Yeah.
Oh, we
just
did vote.
Yeah,
withdraw.
you guys voted, yep,
I'm sorry.
5-0.
All right.
So, can I just grab who the point person is?
Sean.
for this?
Sean's gonna get the information from the individual members and then send it to me.
Yeah.
This is great, fire away, or this is almost great this is the other stuff.
I just want to make sure, I don't want to,
I don't either.
none of us
No,
want to
no,
do that
we're-
again.
Okay.
We're moving on.
So
Okay.
just to
Anything else
be clear though,
relative
that
to all this, relative to anything that Jeff?
just be clear, though, on that motion, if what's out there is good. If not, and if you want that all in the current year, let me know what your priorities are, because that's going to push everything back probably a couple days for me to recreate that in that format. And the reason being is I can generate a list, no problem. But when I'm putting in stipends that we budget for that we haven't yet paid, I have to then go in and pull them in. It's hard, we haven't paid them, so,
That's understood.
yep.
Okay, we're good? All right.
Good.
So
Thank
just
you.
one more quick question on the school board expense. I did include another, and actually it's just the same copy you had last time. And ultimately, when you look at where the board's expenses were, and I'd like to get this off to the budget committee, I know this board would like to have taken a look at that, or like to take a look at that before we send it off. Looking at the total budget for 2020, it's $228,000. Your total 19 year-to-date spend was $226,000. So overall, and if you want to get into the detail, I'm more than happy to do that. Overall, my recommendation would be I can smooth out some of the lines perhaps that we're not using so much and put those funds into lines that we may be a little bit short. But the biggest lines that you're going to see are going to be, I believe, the legal line on page 3, 90,000, year-to-date spend was a little bit more last year, and if you go to, it was 133 last year, and if you go to the last page, we had budgeted In that very last line, other school board services, the budget was 73,000. We spent 26. We have 25 in the current year budget. I think the reason for the additional funds in that was there was an anticipation that with a bond coming up, perhaps there would be some costs associated with developing, perhaps what the needs assessments were for the district overall. And it doesn't look like a bond was really, that type of work was at a level that we were at. Overall, net, from your year-to-date spend to your current year budget, your numbers are very similar. I would simply maybe shift those numbers, shift money out of that line. 25,000, you spent 26 last year. I could make that 25 and then reallocate some funds up to legal. I know with the withdrawal, and I don't know if we have any agreements coming up next year. We may need some additional funding in that area. Unless you have any other thoughts, those are just my general overall recommendations.
Okay.
My thought is to bring this budget up by 100,000, add 100,000 into other school board services, because the withdrawal plan is projecting that we need about $100,000 should that pass, and it needs to go into a budget. I think you can run this by the budget committee, but my suggestion would be to, or maybe you have some thoughts on this. There's a projection in the plan for 100,000 to pay the interim as the withdrawal goes. Whether it goes through or not, we have to budget for it.
Yeah,
It
you know
needs to
what?
go into a budget. I feel like maybe it should go into this budget, just because it's kind of a one-time entity, and it could be easily, like, shown within the school board budget. That's my thought.
Fair enough. And I don't think that the actual accounting on it would be correct coming out of that line, for example, because it'd be salaries, right? We'd be paying people. But if the funding
But
is,
it's going to be more than just salaries, and you
Well,
can't
that's it.
really break it out yet.
so if we have the number there and if everything goes through, you can all transfer it out. But if we hold it there until we can properly allocate it next year, that might be a good place to put it.
You might need temporary office space.
Under the 2319 line, is that what we're talking about?
Yes.
This will be
Yep.
under lease at SA 55 still.
No, it won't.
Yes, it will.
No, it won't.
It's not gonna be under lease?
So,
We're taking that, yeah.
we
Brian?
don't.
Where is, where in the budget, there was engineering and architectural,
We had that in that other school board services
okay.
line, which is why the 19 budget was 73,000. We had allotted some extra funding there, but you can see the spend was about 26.
Yeah, well, you want to leave something in there.
Right. So if we have 100,000 in that line plus the 25 that we have in there already, the total on that line would be 125,000.
Okay.
So what do you think of that? Adding 100,000 into that line? It'll bring the
It's
budget
got to
up.
be somewhere, yeah.
Well, it's got to go somewhere. That brings the budget about 10,000 over what it was last year.
Yeah.
And then that money gets moved around
Makes sense.
if the withdrawal passes into whatever line it needs to go, lines it needs to go into.
That brings in more than that.
Did you say
Well, no, he-
10,000?
Brings in more than 10,000.
No.
No, because you're taking out the
He took out,
100,000.
if you look at the last line on page 4, this budget, last year was
Oh, I see what you're saying.
316. It's dropped to 228, which is a reduction of 90, and I'm adding 100,000. So it's going to bring this budget up to 326.
Gotcha.
So it'd be more than the 2020 budget. And my point earlier was that our year-to-date spend in 2019 was very close to where we're budgeted this year.
90s because your budget is legal,
90, yeah.
right? Is that what it is?
Correct. There's 90 in that line, yes.
Where did it come from?
No, she's looking at, right here, this.
No, I
line.
understand that, but I'm just saying, where did this come from?
Or the loss of 90?
Mm-hmm.
It's the difference between
How much
this year and
less we
last year.
expended.
No, I know.
This line right here.
Okay, no, I understand.
It's almost 10 o'clock.
Okay.
Are we okay with that major change? To add the 100,000, any other
I
changes?
would think so. The rest of it, you can go ahead and shuffle money around, per se.
Perfect.
Do we need a motion? Or are we just letting
I
you know
think you
that's
need,
what?
yeah,
I think we need a
Consensus.
motion. I think it's just a consensus.
That's right. And your budget committee rep is here tonight, fortunately, so we can.
Oh, that's you, Brian. So you can explain it.
yeah, sure.
Okay, next. Anything else? Okay, thank you, Jeff.
Okay.
All right.
I think we can get off by 10.
Maybe.
Okay, I'd asked, this obviously has to go before the SAU board, but for Timberlane's purposes and for Hampstead's purposes, for information only, this is kind of where we are. I waited for your goals. I know you still need to officially adopt them, but you've had several discussions. I feel pretty comfortable that you're in a pretty good place with your goals. Try to draft my goals from your goals. In the past, it's at the SAU level, sometimes there's some sensitivity to Hampstead doesn't really want Timberlane weighing in on Hampstead's goals, and Timberlane doesn't want Hampstead really weighing in on Timberlane's goals, and that makes perfect sense, but you're all sitting around the same table, so it made sense to bring them to you before we're at the SAU level, so that both board has, in my goals, what you'd like to see the mayor line up with your goals. So this is just a draft. I'm not married to this in any way, shape, or form. Certainly can add anything you'd like or make any kind of changes you'd like. Would be perfectly fine. So, I didn't know how much of a discussion you wanted to get into.
Are there going to be SAU goals?
No,
So there are not going to be any SMART goals for the business office?
unless if the SAU directs me to make SAU goals specific, separate from the two districts, then there'd be SAU goals. But I was waiting on the district goals, the board level goals, before I drafted my goals to mirror your goals.
So you're looking for direction from the SAU on SMART goals for the business office?
Not necessarily, no. I'm saying we've never had SAU goals before, right?
So should we be incorporating SMART goals into the Timberlane goals?
If the SAU board is looking for goals that are specific to the SAU, right, that's a different discussion. I've asked several times at the SAU level. What we did was district-specific goals based on the school board goals. That's where my goals come from.
But the business administrator doesn't work for the school board, it works for the SAU.
That's a completely different discussion. That's an SAU discussion. These are Timberlane-specific goals that are my goals that go at the SAU level, right? So if we're having SAU goals, that's a third set of goals. We've never had those before. And then arguably, then I should just be evaluated on SAU goals. The Timberlane goals and the Hampstead goals are just goals, I guess, then, right? Because I work for the SAU. That's not the way we've done it. But if we're changing it now in the middle of the game, I would have liked to known it in advance, not tonight. I brought what I thought I brought.
Well, you just asked a question. It's okay.
Just asked a question.
It's okay.
That's all.
It's okay.
That's
I'm trying to, yeah, it's okay. Okay, so it didn't make it into the goals.
What?
The March 1st date. See, I wasn't crazy.
right
There
about
was
the
a
date,
March
I know.
1st date.
I read it after our discussion. I mean, I looked back at it.
Okay, so it made it in the goals. See that? I didn't think I was crazy about it.
No. It was on, I think I made it on, I do a follow-up report.
I just read it, and I'm
was
just
on
like,
that, and-
I wasn't crazy.
So
So I'll add it to the minutes as well.
do these goals reflect what would be now into the second year of the strategic plan?
Do these goals reflect?
The
you
second
see
year of the strategic plan?
Climate, culture, public relations, academics, facilities, budgeting, and business, so that would be a yes.
Well, each year of the strategic plan has specific milestones with little X's. Is that what that reflects? I understand that those were the main topics in the strategic plan, but my question pertains to the second year of the strategic plan.
The strategic plan is really a board initiative.
Okay, so that's
So it's not a no, it's a yes. There's the topics right here, 1, 2, 3, 4, exactly the same as the strategic plan.
the second year of the strategic plan.
These are my goals off of your goals, like I said 5 minutes ago. So if you have goals that are reflective of the second year of the strategic plan, then it's an easy yes, right? If your goals are not reflective of the strategic plan, which by the way is a board-driven committee, then the answer would be no, but it would be because the board goals don't line up with the strategic plan. I'm lining my goals up off of the school board goals.
Okay, I got a question.
I don't have any questions on this.
Under climate and culture and public relations, I see the goal here. I agree with that goal, but I think there should be another one added. Because there should be something that it's basically saying, meeting quarterly with TSSU and TTA union members to discuss. Do you get what I'm saying? For input and da-da-da-da, and I don't see that here anywhere.
The TTA is left out of that, that's what you're saying.
Well, the TTA is left out of it, but
Well, that's what he's at.
this is negotiation sessions.
That's right.
No, I understand, but that's what he's at. So what you're suggesting is.
Or this,
put
But I'm
some-
talking a basic,
Oh, I understand. No, this is, from what I understand, this is what we got tonight. So what it looks like, and if we want to add some things to it, that's
is that what this is? Okay, I'm sorry.
That's what I led with.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll email, sorry.
No, it's not, well.
I'm sorry.
I'm not saying
I didn't
email it. I'm just saying
understand that. It
that
just
if you
was-
want to add that, that sounds like a legit thing. You could,
So you just want us to email you, like we did last year?
and I
Yeah,
can
and
tell
Is that
you.
okay?
Yeah, and
Okay.
I tried to, last year I took everybody's input and tried to put them in my
Right.
goals. This year I pretty much took your goals and tried to
Mirror 'em.
make
No, I
goals
understand that, but
supported what you were trying to do as a board.
All right, so then the board will take an action item that each, members will come up with any kind of things that they'd like to add to this, and we'll put it on the agenda for next meeting, with a short discussion on it.
well, your timing for the
It's a
SAU.
day late.
Do that. The SAU meeting's October 2nd.
Yeah.
Well, we were just talking about that this has nothing to do with the SAU.
But this is what I,
That's right, it doesn't.
So this is all Timberlane, so we're gonna update it at our next meeting. Isn't-
the tricky part, Sean, is it's the Timberlane goals and the Hampstead goals are voted on by the SAU board, my goals, because I work for the SAU, I don't work for a specific district. However, we've tried to tailor the goals specific to the district. So we could table the goals on October 2nd and put them later, so that the boards can kick and punch these goals to whoever they want, right?
Yeah, you have a second
It's not gonna
meeting
make a big
in-
bit of difference if
SAU meeting.
it's October
Yeah,
2nd
so
or.
then you're saying that or your recommendation would be is that instead of adopting the superintendent goals at the SAU meeting, is that would be pushed out to the next meeting of the SAU
Right.
to adopt it?
So that Timberlane could have what they wanted in their goals.
When's the SAU meeting?
The first one's the 2nd, and I think the next one is the 16th, but I thought the superintendent was going to be there on the 16th.
I'm a conference out of state.
So,
But
Okay.
I'd
So we can
incorporate,
push
I mean,
them out.
both boards would have what they felt like they wanted in these goals before the 16th, right? So if I get all that, I get the information from you in the next couple of days or week or whatever, I can get these in some sort of draft form for the 2nd. You don't have to vote on them on the 2nd, because you're gonna wanna do something on the 3rd, right, which is the following night, right, as the Timberlane board would,
Correct.
So you could say, hey, we're gonna, all right, thanks, it's a nice draft, we'll table them, and we'll vote on them officially 2 weeks from now, but wanna make sure that Timberlane and Hampstead school boards, separate from one another, are comfortable with the goals, right? And if they need to be smartened up, we'll smarten them up. If things need to be added, we'll add, whatever, at your pleasure, whatever you need.
Okay.
So are you sending the goals to the superintendent, or are they going to this chair? I'm just looking for.
I
Well,
have no idea.
That would, I'm fine with getting everybody's input and.
Okay, so
and
Instead of
as-
send to
One
the
document?
chair.
Oh, maybe,
Yeah,
instead
no,
of.
I'll get everything in
That's fine.
feedback in one document, and then I'll.
Beautiful.
I'll
Yeah,
That's
that's the
easier.
way we usually go now, right? So last year, I think I just emailed you directly, but put the Sean, it'd be easier.
Yeah.
The discussion around the timelines of some of the things that the board was looking for with relation to, maybe I'm jumping ahead, this that we got here on the back, is any of this impacting the goals that we should tie in together, or is it a separate conversation?
Come back to this one.
That's on the back of the upcoming events. We're trying to create a calendar
Yeah.
with all this important dates for you.
Yes.
No. That's-
Yeah, but I know there was, did you need any of that for your goals?
Well, this was one of the goals, was to make sure we had that calendar, so. Yeah, so that's always a work in progress, so if there are other things you need to add to that at some point, I don't think it's ever fully completed. We'd like to get it as complete as possible with what we do know, right? If things change for whatever reason, well, then we can add to that list, but I think that list is pretty standard, and a lot of those things don't really change. as
Right,
far
so
as
what'll end up
forms.
having to change is that each year we'll have to go through the timeline in this and populate what actual meeting it'll occur at, if it's supposed to be the second meeting in October or whatever. And this only really starts current and now. I didn't have time to back this up into July 1.
So
we'll
what, like
continue
one
to
that I'm
add to
looking
this.
at,
Mhm.
about halfway down, it says assessment reports, state and building assessment scores, school board, 12/5/2019.
Right.
But when I look at superintendent goals, it's provide assessment reports to the school board by June 1, 2020.
Right, so that was because, and the reason the superintendent's goal is that way, because there could be, it all depends on which ones they are. At the end of the day, is that he has to have had reported out on the assessment or by June 1st. Yours is specific to a certain date that you wanted, and I think you have one that you were talking about was maybe
Smarter Balance.
SATs. Right, or maybe Smarter Balance. At the last meeting when Ms. Allaire had mentioned when she would have the data for one. So we had moved that out because the board had said, we want to prioritize budget first, action plan second, assessment reports third. And
Okay, I just
so-
wanted to make sure we're not,
Right, so
like-
no, so either way, they can both be satisfied.
okay.
To meet that budget, to get that full budget to you with the, like by that first meeting in October, my entire work schedule has had to be completely altered, which is fine, but that's the priority. So almost every minute of every day now is spent trying to get that budget pumped out.
That's
a
just
good
the
5 or
default,
6 weeks
right?
earlier. Default and the proposed by the first meeting in October.
Yeah.
So that's really what we've prioritized that. We've made that, I mean, and I get two districts in the SAU all at once. The other district, Hampstead's still in the same old time frame, and the SAU we need to have by October 2nd anyway for that preliminary draft, but that's not the same kind of work as a Timberlane budget, that, with all those departments, it's a lot of work, it's a lot of meeting time, which is fine, we just had to move it up. It's normally something I would have been doing second, third week, fourth week in October, we're doing it now, in September instead of October. All those department meetings. You picture they're all like, are they an hour? Are they an hour?
Yeah, they're an hour each.
Yeah, so-
They're 11?
From
No,
the
more
music
than that.
department to the athletic
Yep.
department to the principals to the, it's a lot of meetings to go through the budgets. But we're in good shape. We're on target. They're all scheduled.
I think in the long run, it will be greatly appreciated by everybody, because last year, what we went through with the budgets and the amount of extra meetings we were trying to schedule and have everybody here to meet those, to meet those deadlines for public hearing, it was,
It's like herding cats.
I mean,
Yeah, no.
and hopefully this year will go smoother and maybe we'll just be done way ahead of schedule.
It just changes the priorities at different times during the year, right? So if you try to make everything a priority, nothing gets done. So we're just
Correct.
want
You
to
can't
take
have
care of it.
everything be priority one. Okay. So everybody's going to give me any kind of feedback on this, and I'll work with Dr. Metzler to give him that information.
Yep. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Where's my agenda now?
Warrant article.
No, you're on the school board goals, I think.
Lower goals.
So you did the supers and now there's, I think, the school board goals.
Yeah.
all over there
I think this
together.
was
And this is your final version. These are incorporated the changes that you had asked for at the last meeting.
Okay. And this was just a clean copy of it.
Clean copy. Mhm.
Okay. So I'd seek a motion to approve
You wanna
school
just-
board 2019 and 20 goals as presented.
I'll second that, but I want to have a discussion.
All right. So I'll make that motion. Then you can second it.
I second it.
Okay.
Under facilities, I would like to see a 5-year CIP, capital improvement plan of around $2 million per year for the next 5 years generated.
Okay.
Give me that
Say
again,
that again.
please.
And I would like to see a 5-year
CIP.
capital, I don't want to say CIP, a 5-year plan
Yeah. Facilities plan?
for facilities with approximately $2 million per year for facilities improvement that the board can be voting on. And the other thing I'd like to see under facilities, since we just spent all this money on the roofs, is I would like to see a proposal for solar panels generated, or some sort of, somebody come in to see what that would cost and what the payback is on it.
That's the energy committee. That's a board committee. I'm not sure who your representative is. I don't know when the last
I
time
don't
they
know
met.
if we have one, do we?
I know.
I think Dr. Fair is on it.
I am on it. I
Oh,
am on it.
great, okay.
Follow me.
So, but it still goes under school board goal.
Right.
So you want some sort of, like, exploration?
Yeah, I'm even willing to pull it out of the school board budget to take a look at it, if we need it.
Yeah, I guess we should look at that.
We
Do
should.
you wanna, would you like to draft the language for that, for those goals, Dr. Farah?
The goal is to,
Explore the possibility, create a proposal for solar energy.
is create a proposal.
To buy them, or to have somebody lease
Well,
our roof space?
Either or, then you'd be probably looking at
It's a
it part of that.
I don't know what the, yeah, you either buy them or you lease them.
The problem in New Hampshire is the tax appetite. So our best school, because we've already done this before a few years ago, our best school is Sandown North, because of the way the roof is situated in terms of solar panels. But it needed a new roof. They wouldn't put the panels on that old roof, on the roof that's there. They want a brand new roof. But they, for them to run the meters backwards, right? Essentially, because it's perfect. The problem with that was, it was almost like 20 years or something for them to make the money back on the panel installation. And so they were like, these are 20-year panels, but you're gonna put them on a roof that needs to be replaced in 10 years or whatever. Because the roof was 10 years old at the time, I guess, or 15 years old. So 30 years, hoping to get 30 years out of the roof. So we can look at it again. I don't know if that's changed at all, but a lot of times they wanna lease your roof space because they get the tax break. Like actually the company that installs the solar panels.
And maybe not
You're
every
right, but-
facility will have this, but maybe, it doesn't have to be on the building itself. I mean, look at Brentwood Fire Department on there on 125.
Look
I mean,
at
they got 'em off
Exeter
the-
High School.
I haven't been
Whole
there.
solar field.
Yeah.
Look at Sanborn High School that has solar panels on the front.
On the front of
I'm
them.
not talking about roofs that are aged. You only want to put it on a roof that's new, because it's a payback of 20 years. So you either purchase them, or you give the company that tax break, and you do a lease. So it depends on whether you want to pay that cost, or whether they want to pay that cost. And if it hasn't been looked at in a couple of years, I can tell you, the technology and the costs have been driving down every single year.
That is true.
It's probably been 5 years, so Kim's right. The costs are probably much different. But I know we were excited to do it, and then they were,
Yeah.
it just wasn't worth it for them to do it.
So worth looking into again.
It is.
It's some kind of.
Well, now that the
at
roofs are
least
done.
Yeah, the
Just
six
to start that
roofs, but
exploration again. Okay.
So what's the verbiage in here? Well, the reason I want to get it
Well, I
exact
guess
is
it's
because what I'd like to
Create a
do,
proposal for,
Sorry,
This
can you
is
start
solar
again?
energy.
create a proposal for solar energy on district buildings,
period.
that's it.
And that's it. Okay? So I like to
All
actually
grounds, right?
add those
Or
two
grounds, I don't know, we have
items
enough.
3 and 4 as items 3 and 4 to facilities as already outlined. And then I like to approve the document as is, and we're done with it. Because this is starting to come back. It's
Fine.
a
Yeah, no,
recurring
no,
thing.
It's fine.
And then we're gonna add something to it next time, so.
Right, yeah.
Exactly.
All right, so
Yeah.
do we have a, wait, we have
I'll
a.
withdraw let's withdraw the first and the second and amend, either that or we can add an amendment.
Why can't we just vote on that?
Okay, we'll vote on this.
Vote on that motion. What was the motion again?
To approve
Who's on first?
the
What's on
goals
second?
as presented.
I guess we can't vote on
That
that.
was the motion.
As amended, right?
Oh,
The
then you.
motion hasn't been amended.
No, the
Was
goals
Kim's-
were amended.
No, the goals were amended, yeah.
So,
The goals were amended
So you
to,
want to just say the vote passed with motions with the goals amended? No, you should
So
either
are you
withdraw or
amended-
just start
so-
over.
Okay.
wait, stop for a second.
There you go.
We had this blank copy, and then we added item 3 under facilities, which is a 5-year plan for
I did it in the opposite
facilities
way.
with approximately $2 million per year.
Yeah.
And then the fourth one was the solar one that we
Yeah.
just talked about. So we're gonna add these potentially to our goals.
Isn't that just an amendment to the?
You can make an amendment, or you can start over, but
let's make an amendment. So I make an amendment to add goals 3 and 4 as written to the school board goals.
Second.
Okay,
goals
Let's
3,
vote on
and
that
hold on.
amendment.
okay.
Okay.
Motion made and
I
seconded.
can't write that fast. So the amendment is to add goals 3 and 4
Yep.
to the goals, yep. All right,
Okay,
so you have a motion, a vote on the motion to amend.
okay. All those in favor? Passes unanimous.
Yeah. Now you have a newly amended motion to vote on.
Which would be,
Except the amended goals.
Right, motion to approve the goals with
As
the
amended.
addition of new goals 3 and 4. That's your new motion.
Second, I make the motion.
No,
Okay.
it
Oh,
isn't.
it's already been made?
It's already a
Yeah,
motion.
so now you're just voting on the amended
Oh.
motion. Vote on
Vote on the
amended
amended
motion.
okay.
Yeah.
All those in favor?
Okay, now
Done.
you just, that's accurate. That's,
Thank you for keeping us accurate.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Kathy. School, all right, warrant article process.
So what's in your packet, so each year we do the annual meeting and election calendar, and I haven't run these numbers, these dates by council yet, just based on counting back, the third Tuesday after the second Friday, but not before the third Wednesday. That's how they do their calendars. So those are the dates, and once they're finalized by council, we'll be all set, but that's in your pack to kind of give you an idea of what you're building your schedules on. And then I took the liberty of making a draft warrant with all the possible ones that we've got, possible articles that we've got. Nothing is etched in stone, it's draft only.
Yep.
Oh, okay, this too. Getting tired, I only saw one.
All right, so this is,
It's really for informational, so
Yeah, no,
one
no,
of the things
that's-
that you guys had done in the past is that you have held meetings to have conversations about your articles.
Right.
Yes.
Versus taking up a board business meeting, that you would have a work session to discuss those.
okay, thank you for putting this together, Kathy. Great job. Anybody else have anything on that?
No, I mean, we might want to have one later, but I don't see anything that we'd want to add yet.
No.
No.
A little early. Okay, now we're on to administrator reports.
In your board packets, you have two executive summaries that was requested. There's a staffing update relative to the unfilled positions. And secondly, there's a bullying update, including stats on categories of complaints. Important to note that at the beginning of this school year, they're collecting data associated with complaints on situations that did not rise to the level of bullying investigation. So training on this process will be provided to all the administrators. That's at our upcoming TILA. That's the Timberlane Executive Leadership Academy session, and that's next week. We've got a donation. On behalf of the district, I've accepted a donation of $500. That's from the Atkinson Women's Civic Club, and that's earmarked for peer-to-peer substance abuse program. We extend a thank you to this organization. They help us out every year, and very appreciative. I have a request. We don't allow outside organizations to advertise within the school district. We can make exceptions to that for certain organizations. So I'm considering making an exception for an organization. If you wanted to go into detail on that, I prefer to do that in non-public, not in public.
Okay.
I can let you know which the organization is and why and where, if that.
Can I ask a question about one of these executive summaries?
Sure.
The staffing one? What's ICT?
Information, computer technologies.
Is that, so we just had the conversation about, we have a new technology. Is this an additional position?
No, it's just one that's
Adding?
open that we didn't.
That they
we
didn't
just-
fill.
We didn't need to fill at this time.
Okay, okay, so
Really?
these are not, I'm sorry, we do not anticipate the need.
They're
Oh,
open and vacant, they're not posted, anything that.
Sorry, I misread
that's-
that.
That
Okay.
Sandy's still trying to fill, they're posted and we're recruiting. Sometimes critical shortage areas, they can go on for quite some time.
I misread that, sorry.
Okay, no worries. Finally, there were, the NEASC visitation, that's an organization that comes in and does accreditation for high schools and middle schools in some instances, although we do not participate in that program anymore. They're scheduled to visit the high school from November 17th to November 21st. Visitation includes a session requiring school board participation, which is scheduled for Sunday, November 17th, and that's from 12 to 4 p.m. at the high school. Make the presentation to the NEASC team and hold breakout sessions with board members and the superintendent. Lunch will be served. Board members should RSVP to Kathy Belcher for this special school board session. Sunday, huh?
It's on a Sunday, yes, yeah.
What is this?
So they do a presentation, the high school
Accreditation.
does a presentation to the NEAS team, and then, I'm not exactly sure that, they haven't finalized the schedule yet, but part of that presentation and that day does require input and, actually group sessions with the superintendent and with members of the school board.
What's
So
the
they're
date on that?
17th of November.
Seventeenth is a
17th.
Sunday, yeah, so
That's
they're
a Pats
looking
game.
for school board members to
Is there a
participate.
Pats game that day?
Play on Sundays, most of the time.
Yeah,
It'll be earlier in the day.
nope, I'm in Western Mass that entire day.
So just let me know if you want to go so that we can let them know when they can plan accordingly. So there could be some sort of school board representation for the high school accreditation.
That's the administrator's report.
Okay, thank you, and,
No personnel report this evening.
no personal, okay.
We're really light tonight.
Committee reports and reports of the school board.
I'm not complaining, but wow, is it late?
Any update?
A couple little updates. We did not have a quorum, so we did not have a budget committee meeting last week. It was just a general discussion of about 5 of us, so it's always a non-meeting, just
God bless.
shooting the breeze. In terms of, let's see, in terms of facilities, I am, was with the superintendent, and I was with Mr. Paradis, and early tonight, just before the meeting, with Jeff. So we're trying to get ready, on this whole PAC thing. So basically, there's trying to resurrect the team here, basically, to get this thing ready to go out to bid. So we'll probably have some ready for the next meeting.
Okay.
So,
Thank you.
I think we got to find out, like, when people can do it, make sure it doesn't, what their schedule is, coordinate this whole thing between the mason, between the metal guy, and, as we as board have already talked about, we're not really interested in paying any type of winterizing type costs, if you will, so we'll work around combination of their schedule and the rail calendar, so. Anyway, so we'll probably have better information at the next powwow.
Okay. All right. Sheila, Jen?
Also didn't meet, I did go to the college fair at the high school.
Yeah.
It was pretty good. Well, I mean, I didn't stay for the seniors. I mean, the juniors were interesting to watch go around somewhere. It was just taking it in their first go around, but, no, there were a lot of good schools there.
Okay.
I have been in communication with the council that we employed for the withdrawal.
Okay.
As I said, I think I said this last time, the plan has been submitted to the state. Hampstead's council did send a letter to, I guess, our council and the withdrawal committee, stating that they didn't think that the plan was prepared adequately. We have submitted a response to their letter. They submitted it to the Department of Education. I just got that this afternoon, so I haven't had a chance to look at it. I did ask our council if that was public document. Both those are public documents, so I'm gonna be sending them to, we already have the one from their council, but I'll be sending out the response by our council, and I'm gonna send out both documents to the withdrawal committee, so that they're aware of it.
Okay.
We're still looking at probably going on October 10th. And when that day, they'll give us a yes or no typically on the plan. So I'll send it out to the board first, what our council sent to DOE, and then I'll send it out to the withdrawal committee.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry, one last thing, basically, that we're progressing on our little support staff union agreements, so I think that's.
Oh, yeah, that's right, we had that meeting.
Yes, we've had a couple meetings, and I'm thinking
Moving along.
I think it's moving along, and I'll be very surprised if it's not wrapped up at the next meeting.
Great.
Great.
I forgot 2 things that are probably
Okay.
important to the public. First is the Triple E, the spraying, because people had asked about.
Actually gonna bring that on up.
The final, all 5 towns in the SAU will have been sprayed by this weekend. Danville spraying Friday night, I believe, into.
Okay.
So I got that question today from some people. Typically towns wait for a positive, a hit in one of their traps before they spray, so I think everybody's surrounded by it, so everybody's sprayed, so.
No, and what I was gonna bring up in other businesses is I think that we should actually develop a district policy on how we deal with this, because you're not just taking the district, which is the overseer of all the schools, but then the towns don't have, jurisdiction. They just can't come in and just start spraying on the school property without the school involvement and stuff. So, but then the towns are usually the ones that get notified first of the hits, the status of that. So I would just like to think that we should develop a policy that, if it's generated in here where it's determined that, it's necessary to start a spraying program, that we deal with this as a board and we have a policy in place and we address all schools simultaneously versus the current method, which is involving respective towns to get into it, the funding of that. And I just think having a clear plan in place on how to address that is the best approach. So what I'd like to do is go down that road.
Typically, that would come up.
You want a new policy in the policy book?
Yeah, just
So
one.
logistic, I'm thinking logistic-wise, and I understand what you want to do, but I'm thinking that the process is that the towns notify us because we don't have any traps. We don't
Correct.
secure any traps, we don't do any of that. So we rely on the towns to communicate, and I don't know of a single time that a town has not communicated that they got a hit or they detected some sort of positive detection on their mosquitoes. And then immediately, we're working with those health officers or those health departments for
Correct.
that spraying. So I don't know, you had talked about making it a board thing. Is that we're gonna wait for a board meeting to spray or get?
No, but if we have a plan in place, I mean, it's
So
working.
I was just not
It's
following
like
because
who is the entity that's going to say spray on the school district property? That has to come
Well, I
from
think probably the only
a
town
school
that
personnel. I mean, and I'm,
I think the only town that doesn't automatically do that is Danville. I think the other three towns are like, we're gonna be there, we're gonna start posting notices, we've already contacted your principals, we're gonna be out there, so.
The normal,
Yeah, and maybe you're just not used to it, Sean, because you're from Danville, but the other three towns.
no,
yeah,
I was
they're
there.
spot on.
I was part of it when we tested positive back in 2012. And then what happened was we were being proactive and starting to do all this stuff, and then we started getting some like, well, wait, this is the school, we got to get the authorization for all
Yeah.
that stuff. So
It's not authorization from the school, it's just coordination is when you can spray, because we have to notify parents. Because if you're gonna spray on a certain day, we have to get signs out, we have to make sure there's no
No,
after-school
I
activities.
agree. There's a lot of coordination
So,
of that, and there's a
yeah,
plan that's in
okay.
here.
I
Because
just- I-
we
I'm just
didn't
trying to
test
figure out how you're gonna make
positive
that
in
work.
Danville. We tested positive in surrounding districts or
Right.
surrounding towns. But the thought process is to move on this forward and stuff.
When we got our first hit, we did call the other towns. We had the first day we got the hit, which was in Sandown, we got the first hit, and our school, the facilities department had contacted the other three towns the very next morning. The very next morning, it was a directive from the superintendent, we've got one hit, we've got to get right on this. And so they were contacted, so we weren't waiting for Plastow or Atkinson or Danville to say, we have a positive detection. We're already calling them saying, how do we get these properties sprayed? And they were doing that. And I think the last one is, Plastow spraying, I want to say Friday night, but don't hold me to that. So, and there's been no detection there as well. There's no hits in Plastow, but for the same reason.
They sprayed today.
Oh, they did spray
They were
today?
spraying while we were here. That
Okay,
was a
I'm
noise
sorry.
Danville's tomorrow night.
Okay, so they do really coordinate that really well, so I understand that you want to get something in writing. I'm just trying to think of what you could put in writing that's gonna work better than the great team. People just watch out for one
Are
another.
you feeling like
do
they
really
weren't
well.
sprayed in an adequate time frame, or? I'm just trying to figure out what the.
I would think that it would be more of, I know is the going through and wearing both hats, is that I wouldn't want to call and be proactive. We get a hit on a late Friday. I like to, if it was in the town, we could actually say, yeah, go ahead and spray on a Saturday. I couldn't, as a selectman, where I wouldn't recommend to my board at that point that we just go off and spray, the school district property. It'd be just like spraying on somebody's private property and stuff. So, and that's
there's
where
other
the separation of the two entities are.
Factors have to do with rain, There's a
Oh,
difference if
yes,
they
no,
take
no,
a
all
And you
kid,
have to
but-
post, you have a certain amount of time, so many hours, and I don't know, I wish I was an expert in that, I'm not. But there's a certain amount of time that you still need to post, and even part of that posting is, even if you wanted to do it the next day, I don't know if you physically could based on posting requirements, but
Or even
Yeah,
the
typically-
schedule of the
if you
people
need to get a
spraying.
hold of somebody in the school district, as a town, I know that many of the towns, they have our emergency contact information. If they need to know something about the property, they know who to call, they have their cell phone number, so you would get somebody who'd be able to authorize that, or be able to at least touch base with someone who could get to the one who could authorize it. So,
Yeah, what we
that's all. It's-
currently-
Yeah, it's not
yeah.
as difficult as,
What we currently
Yeah.
do was addressed in our safety committee.
Okay.
So, and Denise Horrocks, I want
Yeah.
to say, I
Mhm.
pronounce it, she's really, and I want to thank Denise, I don't know if she's watching, but she's really
Yeah.
the lead contact person,
she
because
is.
she usually, and with all 5 of our towns, I mean, she's the first, she's literally the first person I hear from. And then we do the rest of what Kathy said, we contact all the towns. And it's been done differently, sometimes sometimes we've cost shared with particular towns, sometimes we've paid for it, sometimes the town has paid for it. Seems that in more recent years, the towns are just paying for it. Like Atkinson was right on it, we're spraying, Plastow was always taking care of it. We've cost
In the
shared.
overall scheme of things, it's a noise figure, but it's the proper planning of it, of like, this is what we're gonna do when next time, if we had something in place that says, in this case, Sandown tested positive, one of the member communities tests positive, we're gonna start a mosquito spraying program, immediately, and it's going to be coordinated by, the logical choice would be, it's through you,
so if
working
that's
with
the case, then you just have to budget for it, because you can't assume that the town of Danville is gonna wanna spray the Danville property when Plastow's got a hit, or when maybe Sandown's got a hit.
No,
Because sometimes they say, well, we
exactly.
don't have anything
I definitely
yet.
would support.
Let's do this,
You don't-
let's
you
do
don't
this.
just-
What you're asking for already exists, we already do it.
Okay.
Right? If you'd like to see it in writing, we can put it in writing. I mean, we already do it, it's already coordinated, everything gets
And it's
taken
such
care
a
of.
small
Yeah.
amount of money that if
Yeah.
a town said, we don't have it, we want the school to pay for it, and it's, well.
One of the towns didn't have it a few years ago, we paid for
Then,
it.
right.
It's
I
not a
mean,
big
it's-
deal.
Right.
Like, at the end of the day, we're gonna do whatever we gotta do to take care of our
Right.
kids.
Safe,
So,
Yeah.
and we help each other out, and the towns have all been great, all 5 of them in
I
the
don't
SEs,
think
so.
it's a big deal.
So we're good. But we can put something down, and it's more of a procedure, right, than it's a
It just
procedure.
says, what do we do? Because it's, I don't see this problem going away in the future. I mean, it's gonna be more of, the fall triple E, when's it coming on out, kind of thing.
Some years earlier than others, and
Correct.
so.
Yeah, yeah.
So thank you for that. The other piece was, and I know this message came out to families, over the weekend, I had an opportunity to speak to the police chief in Atkinson. We talked a little bit about Collins Park, which is at the end of East Road, that park where, and Brian and I talked about it today. I don't want to get into the details, but the chief and the town administrator had asked me, to let students know that they didn't want them parking there for different reasons during the year. So we asked for some grace periods, so we let students know by Monday, they no longer can park there during the day, and they should be looking for, so they've had a week to kind of figure this out. It's not helpful that we don't have enough spots for everybody to drive, I get that. I also don't have any authority over Collins Park, so I just literally with the chief and said, hey, can we have a little bit of grace, and that message went out, and so I'm seeing fewer cars there each day, but there are still cars there. The kids are still parking there, but.
I would actually like to make a motion that you come back to the board with a plan for parking along the fence where those trees were removed. Because when and I'll just, why I'm asking for this, I know we talked about this once before. When you look at where the parking is on the road facing the baseball field, okay, it's the same situation, there's the hill going down. The cars are all pulled in there. When you look at where those trees were removed, all the cars were parked there at the college fair, but they're not even pulled all the way up to the fence. Like, you don't even have to put parking spots all the way up to the fence. It's still like almost 2 car lengths away from that fence. So I can't understand why it's okay on that side of the road, but not on this side.
Well, let me respond. The trees were taken down for several reasons. One was because of the power lines, and and the other part was for parking. So I had asked at the time, previous person in the position, and the hang up here, and I wish the Plastow reps were here. It really has to do with, we have to come up with this huge, it has to go through the planning board, what we're allowed to hard top.
Site plan review? Is that what you need, a site plan review for?
You need a site plan review, so it's pretty extensive. I thought we'd be able to let's just tar that and make more spots, but it was a little bit more than that. So
But
can
we
make that.
haven't, but we haven't moved on that beyond finding out it needs a site plan review.
No, we know that it needs a site plan review. There was a little bit of opposition initially about adding more spots, but it doesn't mean it's impossible, you know? I don't know why, I don't know what it has to do with how many cars you're allowed to have and occupancy and all that.
I think it has to probably do with EPA
Sure.
requirements and pervious and impervious pavement, and that could be an issue in Plastow. That's what it has to do with.
And so we talked about what we did in Sandown, similar thing. So not hard tops, but what do they call it when they grind it up and you
Cold
can put that
asphalt?
down?
It's
That's-
cold
That's
patch,
porous.
yeah. Cold
We got
asphalt.
away with
Porous
that. I mean, that-
concrete.
Cold patch. You said
So,
cold patch?
so anyway, we do a site review plan and take a look at,
The other
So
spot.
before we go, we have a motion without a second and lots of discussion.
sorry.
Anybody want to second my motion to
Well-
look into parking over there?
Well, we already looked into it,
Looking.
because you're
So we
gonna
don't need the
involve
motion.
thousands of dollars of engineering. Site plan review, that's what we're talking about.
Yeah.
You have
It
to
was
put a plan
expensive.
before the, you have to
Yeah,
put a plan
probably
before the
50 to
board.
100,000, if I had to guess.
You have to hire an engineer to come in.
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah, you do the whole,
Then you
gotta do the whole
go
campus.
to the
Yeah,
planning
yeah, it's
board
commercial.
and present it a couple times, get kicked back a couple times, and then you're probably gonna have to get, it's gonna be tough, because there's just an MS4 town, and you're gonna have to
Well, I would
jump
like to
through a
do
lot of
something
hoops.
rather than just leave it where it stands right now, which is nothing.
Well,
Well,
again, I think we need a complete site plan review of all our exterior facilities, including the fields, so that we're gonna do something like this, we do it in one fell swoop, so
We do
we
it
have a
right.
comprehensive plan. I don't disagree about the parking, but I don't think you wanna piecemeal it together. Like Brian's saying, a site plan review, when you start to do, you wanna do this all at once. Because it takes a long time and it's a lot of engineering hours.
And I don't want to go too far into our conversation today, and then it's like looking at our fields and how we're using them, and do we have the best plan out there for fields,
Well,
right?
the sad reality is, you look at the money we spend just on what I consider a minor thing, to do some minor architectural engineering, to put a roof on an existing building.
Yeah.
You can just imagine what it's gonna cost to go survey, do drainage calcs,
So how did we do that in Sandown, and what did that cost look like?
was probably Sandown, so it's probably Sandown,
Sandown is
building
not an
inspector didn't.
MS4 town, I don't
And
think. It
it's
doesn't
probably
have
the
same
Sandown building
issues.
inspector didn't, and the planning board didn't care. You know,
pretty much.
You don't wanna say that they didn't.
No, I don't want to say they didn't
It's not that
care.
they didn't care, but when you get into MS4 towns, because Danville tips into MS4, it's a different animal.
some towns,
Right,
as a
Sean?
developer, I will tell you,
And it's the towns
some
too.
towns are stricter than others on certain issues, you know? And
Yeah,
that,
we worked really closely with them, and it had to do with the access road and how we use that. There was lots of concessions that were made, and there were neighbors involved, and it was a lot of work, but we had a little more flexibility than perhaps we had here in that regard. But it's apples and oranges, I can't compare the two, it's just very different for the reasons that you're citing as well.
So
I mean, I
you
suppose we
said
could
it's-
confirm with the town of Plastow, we could confirm what you ran into as a,
Yeah, well, can we find out what does that process entail, and is that something that we want to look to budget for?
no,
No.
unless you do the whole thing, because you
That's
know,
what I'm saying, you wanna do the whole.
you don't want to spend $50,000 for 50 spaces just for engineering.
Just for-
You-
yeah.
You want to do the whole site.
That's why you need a 5-year plan, which is what Brian's been talking about for a while, and put a couple million a year. And, say the fields take, I don't know, 4 million, you could piece together 2 years of 2 million and 2 million and have 4 million, and that might be enough, maybe not. but
That's a lot of money. I
That's
agree
a
with
lot
you.
of money.
Yeah.
So, but if you're gonna do something like,
You can't do them all at once anyway, because we don't have
no,
any
you
fields.
can't, because you'd have to rotate them, so, but you don't wanna, it's like when they, in the CIP, had all these plans to do, like, this little part and this part, it's just not cost effective, and then you end up with something that looks like, an elephant put together by 5 different people, because.
Have you had a CIP meeting yet?
No. Well, wasn't there one early in the summer, was there? I think I missed, no.
Not really.
No, we didn't.
Mr. Chairman,
Okay.
I think Mr. Duffy had
Yeah,
Yes,
if-
you wanted to
had a
talk
comment
about
on the
spaces.
park.
If I
I'm
may
sorry, Kyle.
interject on the parking issue, I know I've seen a petition going around, and there seems to be somewhat of student sentiment that the district or administration should try and find something of an alternative, however plausible that may or may not be. I know there's student sentiment behind it, just to inform you, the board, on that.
Okay, thank you.
And I think we'd like to, it's just, it's not
Right.
it's not a cheap cheap fix or something that
Oh, I'm-
can be done. I mean, well, you just heard this discussion. Believe me, my daughter had to wait to park, so I get it.
It's been going on
You pay for a
for a
space.
lot of years, this.
I pay $200 a year for each of my girls in their junior year to park across the street.
Yeah.
Because you weren't guaranteed a spot.
Yeah,
Nothing's changed.
all right, can we,
Okay.
what's up?
Done.
All right. Anything else to come before the board?
Do we need a non-public for?
The advertising thing?
You
Yeah.
probably, well, tell you, I don't know how you want to do that.
I'd rather know. Let's go into a non-public.
I don't remember what it is, but I just remember you said we might want to know.
I think I want to know. Is it,
Coming back out?
is it, no,
No, we're not coming back.
is it C? Is it C? Is it reputation?
I'd say it's probably reputation.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna make a motion to enter non-public session under 91A, colon 3, paragraph 2C.
So made, is there a second?
Second.
What's your made and seconded? Roll call vote, Kathy?
Mr. Boyle?
Yes.
Dr. Farah?
Thanks, Val.
Ms. Rose?
Yes.
Mr. O'Neill?
Yes.
Fun next week.
And Mrs. Silva?
Yes.
Get your toga all picked out and everything?
Yeah.
Oh, that's a last minute thing? Oh.